We're on a mission to exterminate monsters that the royal family sent to the McGovern household, and with the help of the Valsar family, led by Commander Arden. But this warrior is actually a spy sent to make sure the McGovern children never make it home. In battle, Arden pretends to be a loyal soldier and kills all the monsters around them so the McGoverns let their guard down. A goblin chief appears and Arden strikes with his spear, hitting a non-vital spot on purpose, just to make it flee and get the Valsar family separated from the McGovern family. With the plan on track, Arden meets up with the goblin chief and a sorcerer to wrap things up. But one of the McGovern kids steps out from behind a tree asking if this is where their secret meeting is. Arden is stunned, unable to understand how this kid knew exactly where they were. The boy knows everything about Arden, that his codename is Wooden Cloud. He knows about the goblin chief and about the whole operation. The moment the boy reaches for his sword, the sorcerer's arms get cut off at the speed of light. Arden can't believe what he's seeing and wonders where this kid even came from. He tried to stop the boy, but the boy blew right past him and cut the goblin chief in half. Arden tries to catch him off guard, but the boy was already one step ahead, dodging his attack like it was nothing, and in the blink of an eye, he cuts off his arm. Arden takes a few seconds to process what just happened, and by the time he realized it, he was already on his knees with one arm gone. This boy comes from a family of barbarians who normally have no magic, but somehow this boy managed to awaken magic and became a one-man army. This is Khalil. Let's go back in time and understand how this boy got so powerful. Before he was just a boy, he was a hero who saved humanity from a monster apocalypse. But what was his reward for saving the world? A knife in the back from his best friend, being accused of killing the emperor and hunted down by the very soldiers he fought beside, dying with nothing but regrets. The hero wakes up years in the past, long before the war that destroyed his life. But there's one big problem. He's no longer the legendary sword saint. Now he's a young barbarian named Khalil, freshly adopted by Kewell McGovern, which is pretty uncomfortable since Kewell is exactly the commander who killed Khalil's family in the other timeline. But Khalil needs strong backing to prepare for the war that's coming. Khalil meets his new adoptive siblings. In this world, barbarians are looked down on because they're born without mana circuits. They simply can't use magic. So when he casually says at dinner that he wants to learn magic and surpass everyone, the new family thinks he's lost his mind. The oldest brother, Marta, decides to teach the arrogant newcomer a lesson in the training ring. Marta is a prodigy, armed with a mana blade and years of training, but our MC just survived the most brutal training tower in existence. To him, Marta looks like a kid holding a stick. He reads his brother's blind rage perfectly, dodges a heavy strike, and lands a clean punch straight to the prodigy's jaw. The entire courtyard goes dead silent. Instead of bragging, Khalil reaches out to help him up and earns the older brother's respect on the spot. He won the fight, but punching a teenager won't stop an apocalyptic war. Khalil needs something hidden in this family's basement. Impressed by the boy's courage, the Count gives Khalil access to the ancient Einherry library. Nobody knows, but the original owner of that library was the first dragon slayer in history, and he left behind a trap that was impossible to solve. The secret door could only be found by someone completely without mana, which means our barbarian MC with no magic is the only person in history capable of finding it. Khalil breaks into the secret vault and finds the prize, a dragon heart. The moment he swallows the pill, he instantly regrets it. His body starts tearing itself apart from the inside. The pain is so intense that his soul gets thrown into a dimension of memories. He's forced to witness the memory of the dragon Lyceria fighting the mage who ripped out that heart. Khalil feels the dragon's death in his own body, his flesh burning as it fuses with the core. A week later, he finally opens his eyes, lying in his bed, feeling like something is different. He looks down at his hand and summons a bright blue flame, finally managing to unlock mana control. But before he can celebrate, a sharp pain drops him to the floor. He forced open 2 mana cores, but 10 more are still locked. Khalil spent a few days training with his magic and learning more and more. The royal family suddenly orders the McGovern household to go on a monster hunting mission, and as a favor, they're sending support troops from the Valsar family. The Valsars are their biggest political rivals. Khalil recognizes this moment immediately. In his past life, this exact same mission was a perfect ambush that ended with the death of his brother Marta. They meet up with the Valsar troops, led by a dangerous commander named Arden. Khalil knows that Arden is a spy sent to make sure the McGovern children never make it home. Khalil suspects it might be someone outside the Empire, and Martha noticed our protagonist, It's really focused. Asking what he's thinking about now, Khalil told him it's nothing serious. He's wearing a mask because they still don't want to reveal his origin, that he belongs to the barbarian peoples. For Khalil, using that mask isn't a problem. Actually, it's a relief, because he can hide his identity. After Arden had prepared his soldiers, he called them all to start marching. The firstborn son had a message for our protagonist. He asked him to watch the leader of those knights very carefully, a request that didn't even need to be made, because our boy was already planning to do that anyway. Mounted on their horses, the squad is moving forward toward the border. Khalil started paying attention to the geography of the place. That road is getting narrower and narrower, and from what he knows from his past life, the attack happened in a tight spot, which means the ambush is getting close. Khalil is already ready to start taking action. That's when a voice said they'd spotted monsters. More than 100 goblins are coming. Arden told his soldiers to get ready for battle. Khalil is determined to keep watching that man. He won't miss anything important, because things are going to change this time. Near them, the creatures charge forward viciously, shoving the soldiers' shields. Arden leapt onto the monsters, ready to start a huge slaughter. Using his spear, he turned into a blender in the middle of that crowd, tearing apart everything and everyone. His power is seriously impressive. Trying to hype up his men, he told them not to be intimidated. By that, they should hold the perimeter and start attacking. Then the shield formation opened up so the spears could be set out front, stabbing any enemy that got too close. The disorganized monsters are dropping fast. Khalil is also joining the fight with his sword, taking down a few monsters, making charges on horseback. Soon he realized the number of creatures is small. It would be impossible to cause a disaster like in his past life. When his brother died, he'd never be taken down in an ambush with so few creatures it's hard to believe. The soldiers can also hold formation like pros. It didn't take long for the situation to stop being so risky. What started as an ambush was already under control. That's when he realized an unexpected event was underway. A massive attack started happening, and it was coming from the rear of that battalion. A creature with huge teeth had revealed itself. It carried, in one of its hands, a weapon as big as a tree, and its roar is enough to scare even the bravest soldier. Against that enormous monster, the shield wall would be useless. Khalil, watching that monster, started to get scared, because that's the goblin chief, and alone he's already insanely strong, but he usually attacks with thousands of servants, making him a terrifying threat. Tyrone, aware of how dangerous the situation was, ordered the soldiers to fall back. For our protagonist, all that's left is to see what Arden is going to do now. Even with the danger, he keeps giving calm, rational orders to his soldiers. Khalil thought that performance was ridiculous, because he knows he's just a spy. His presence on the battlefield can't be a coincidence, and our boy is waiting to see how far he can keep hiding his intentions. Watching closely as Arden wipes out a few more creatures. After getting off his horse, he said his men need to clear a path, but they can't be reckless, and anyone who's ready should follow him. After that order, the tip of his spear started to glow. Arden was charging some kind of enchantment, and that left the creatures there stunned. The knight was ready to unleash a huge attack. With the creature's chief as his target, he hurled his spear straight at him. But that attack was completely useless. The creature managed to block it. Even so, the knight reacted fast, managing to catch his spear while it was still in the air, getting another chance to strike the creature with a killing blow. Before making the attack, his hand moved in an almost imperceptible way. Khalil was paying attention to everything, and he managed to notice that movement. The attack managed to hit the creature, but since our protagonist saw everything, now he's sure that Knight is plotting something. Because he missed on purpose, the wounded creature is still extremely dangerous, and it decided to attack the one who had almost ended its life. The soldiers are really worried about Arden's safety, but he managed to defend himself. However, after almost being wiped out, the creature realized that running away wouldn't be a bad idea. Seeing they could gain a strateg, ICA advantage, Arden ordered all his men to chase the monsters, and that none of them should be spared. Our protagonist seems to have figured it all out. That's why nobody seemed to notice what happened in his past life. The soldiers of Valsar are going to chase these creatures, and the McGovern garrison is going to get hit by surprise again. A movie-worthy script, Khalil realized. The only mistake in that plan is that now he knows how to fool all those idiots. Tyrone told our protagonist to send soldiers to the knight who chased the creatures, because they need to protect this place. Going against his adoptive brother, Khalil said he's not going to chase those creatures, and that he's actually going to chase Arden himself, because he's his real target. Mounted on their horses, the knights follow the creatures, until Arden decided to stop pushing forward. Looking back, he thought he'd already put enough distance between them. He ordered his men to take care of the weaker creatures, because now he was going out to defeat their leader. Some soldiers hearing that got worried about him. Because the presence of a goblin chief is usually also accompanied by a sorcerer, the two creatures are dangerous and need to be wiped out that day. Looking offended by that comment, Arden asked if they really think he can't do it alone, and right away the knight apologized for the slip-up. Continuing on his way, Arden made it clear the soldiers would only distract him from his job, and now that he's alone, he's sure the McGovern soldiers will have plenty to keep him busy. After riding a bit more, he stopped moving forward. Looking around that place, he wanted to confirm if this is the location. Near him was the goblin chief, badly wounded. Arden said he could show himself since he was completely alone. That's when the sorcerer revealed himself, saying he'd already been waiting for his arrival. Saying the McGovern army fights really well, He asked if the sorcerer could get rid of that guy, pointing at the wounded creature. The sorcerer said he'd do as asked, since they'd worked really hard. Until that meeting is interrupted by a stranger's voice, asking if this is the location of their secret meeting. Our protagonist finally reveals himself, admitting he worked really hard for absolutely nothing. He wanted to at least get some information, but apparently the route is really troublesome. And he was talking about the wooden cloud. After hearing that, Arden was impressed, and asked where the kid got that information. Pointing his spear at Khalil, he asked if he's also from that organization. But to our protagonist, it was clear he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what happened, but he didn't have access to the reports. He went there to help, because he also has things to settle with the McGovern family. Asking if Wooden Cloud understood, Arden started getting suspicious, because that kid knew his codename. Maybe he's also from the organization. Khalil said if they're using the Goblin Chief, the Root must have spent a lot of money on this operation, so the sorcerers must be ready for the nearby ambush. He knows he's asking a lot of questions, and that one of the organization's rules is keeping secrets, but he guarantees the situation is unusual, asking for understanding. With that, Khalil showed his speech skill is level 99. Not even Naruto could pull off something that poetic. And he said he has his own mission, saying the branches do what they're ordered, so the trunk can report the information back to the root. For Arden, that's enough. He believes the kid is on the same side as him. He confirmed the monsters are ready to carry out the ambush. All he needs to do is give the signal. And everything will be easy thanks to the sorcerer prepared by the root, because he's the one responsible for controlling the creatures and giving them the signal. Khalil asked if this man is the one behind all of this, because if that's the case, it's a huge relief. Gripping his sword, the kid started walking toward him, making Arden pretty suspicious. And in the very next second, the sorcerer ended up losing both hands. Khalil said he doesn't want to have to deal with troublesome people anymore. Seeing what had happened, Arden asked furiously what the hell that was supposed to mean. And our protagonist said he'd bought time. Now he can finish them off one by one. Still confused and not understanding where this kid came from, the knight looked scared. Khalil realized he'd be the ideal opponent for his growth, because up to now, I haven't been able to use magic with anyone. Noticing his opponent was channeling mana into his sword, Arden started thinking what attribute he uses, because it's the first time he's fought him. Besides that, he also doesn't know the kid's real identity, or where he could have come from. And maybe he won't even have time to find out, because Khalil had started his attack. Managing to get past the knight while throwing out a strike, that was enough for Arden to realize this isn't a normal enemy. Showing great agility, our protagonist moves lightly, and the knight realized that speed was going to be a problem. Even though he was fighting a real opponent, Khalil moved closer to the Goblin Chief. The creature realized its life was in danger, but there was nothing it could do to save itself. Its body was completely split into two parts. The cut was faster than the creature's reaction to the attack. Khalil looks back, taking in the good work he'd done. The one who got scared by that was the knight Arden, seeing a dangerous monster get taken down in a single blow. That made him realize the real monster is actually a small masked boy. Channeling mana into his spear, Arden tried to attack our protagonist, and because he managed to get close, he believed for a brief moment that he'd caught the kid off guard. But all he managed to hit with his spear was air. Khalil not only dodged it, he got even closer. Right then, Arden realized he'd have to throw away the underwear he was wearing. The strong impact caused by his attack hurt absolutely nobody. And now, a young man going through puberty for the second time charges forward in a rage. Blazing past the knight like lightning, he took an arm as the toll. Arden took a while to understand he'd have to learn to write with his other hand. The pain from the wound is crippling, making him drop to his knees. Khalil is weighing his actions, realizing he still has a long way to go. He needs to master the path of mana. Now that his opponent has basically been subdued, our boy walked up to him because he has a few questions to ask, and he strongly recommended that the knight cooperate, because that would be good for his physical well-being. Then he asked what he knows about the root. Pretty worried, and knowing that kid isn't a fool, he asked if he'd spill secrets if he were in his position. While running his fingers along the edge of his sword, Khalil said patiently that he wouldn't say anything either. Then he carried out another attack against that spy. Ready to change his approach, he was going to ask another question, wanting to know what the spy was supposed to do once he finished that job. More and more nervous, Arden said he wasn't going to answer that either, and our protagonist told him he doesn't need to get the answer right now. All he needs to do is make an example out of that spy for the others. Right after that, he used his sword to finalize the divorce between that head and the body. Showing he still had things to deal with, he turned his attention to the sorcerer, because apparently he can handle pain better. Seeing what happened to the spy, the sorcerer also realized he should have brought a spare pair of underwear. Desperate to save his own life, he asked what that the creatures were doing, because they were supposed to attack that brat. Now, to his bad luck, the creatures may be savage, but they aren't stupid, and they chose to run away from that place. The sorcerer tried to threaten all of them, but he didn't have time, because Khalil was already behind him and said he'd only ask once. Later, Khalil got on his horse and returned to his allies, bringing the sorcerer along too. Tyrone, who was already worried, noticed Khalil was coming. Seeing the kid bringing exotic things, a head and a prisoner, he asked what had happened. He also wants to know what they did with the goblin chief. Ali said that it was an ambush, and that, unfortunately, the knight Arden was brutally finished off by the monsters. When Tyrone realized who that head belonged to, he was speechless. He was having a hard time believing that version, and Khalil took the chance to throw the sorcerer to the ground, saying again that it was an ambush. And that actually, its goal was to ambush the heir of the McGovern family. Tyrone was now very surprised. Taking the opportunity, Khalil said the sorcerer is the one responsible for controlling the monsters. Since he had already confirmed the identity of that despicable being, he found out he's connected to the Duchy of Lurin. Now that the chain of command has been compromised, the monsters must be disorganized. They need to make a choice. If they ignore the monsters, they could become a problem for nearby villages. His brothers realized that was very rational. Khalil stared firmly at the rep, representative of Valsar who stayed alive, the second in command. Since Knight Arden is no longer among the living, he was promoted on the battlefield. The old man was surprised by that. Khalil said that if he wants to return to his territory, he won't be judged, because they lost their commander early in the battle. But the old man knows that if he goes back, the Baron will be upset, so he told our protagonist they would keep helping. As soon as he heard that, Khalil got up on the horse, saying the old man had spared him a lot of trouble. He also told his brother Tyrone to take command, because they need to be quick to wipe out the creatures and reduce the damage. However, Tyrone believes he shouldn't be the one responsible for leading the soldiers. Recognizing Khalil as the right person for that, realizing he'd earned his approval, our protagonist felt happy. So he called for the soldiers to follow him. The boy knows that in 3 years the Oracle will appear. He needs to climb the chain of command as fast as possible. Otherwise, he won't be able to put his plans into action. He needs to go to the Empire's capital, because this reality has already started to be reshaped. The monsters are completely disorganized. This is the perfect situation to wipe them all out at once. Leading the charge, Khalil tells the soldiers to follow him in this task. Tyrone watches everything, totally shocked, because he can't explain what he's seeing. For someone who can't control mana, the rookie fights really well. Martha, who's also watching, realized they'd a pretty wrong judgment call, because the rookie is actually a monster, and he started thinking about what he could become once he's an adult, because the word monster will be too small to describe him. Khalil is already celebrating the victory along with the soldiers. Back at the main house, Baldy said that young Master Khalil was really important that day, and even captured a spy. And Baldy made it clear that if it weren't for the boy stepping in, the heir's life and his brother's lives could have been put at risk. The Emperor already knows the news, and the spy will be taken to the palace. Now it's a question of whether he'll take young Master to the Empire's capital. The Count knows the problem in that place isn't His Majesty, but the princes fighting for the throne. They'll definitely examine Khalil. Trying to pull him to their side, the boy can be seen as an ally or a problem. If the king wants him there, the Count won't be able to go with him. Khalil knows that if he goes to the palace now, everything's going to get complicated, because he's still a foreigner. Even so, the situation favors him. As he walks up to the soldiers, everyone greets him, but the boy managed to come up with a plan. He went over to the spy who was being held prisoner. He ordered the man to stand up, and to pay very close attention to the words he was about to hear. He should start by saying everything he knows. That way, things will go smoothly for him. After a few minutes, he heard everything that man had to say, and the sorcerer begged for mercy. Khalil's aid he'd be taken to the palace either way, and that there they'd do cruel things to him. The pain of losing part of his arms is nothing compared to what's coming in the future. He can't escape this punishment, which will last many months until his life is finally ended. Showing a dose of poison, Khalil said this is his mercy. He'll give that sorcerer a chance to end his own journey on this earth. Arriving in the village, the Count's children are being greeted by everyone, who welcomed those young men like they were heroes. Tyrone told our protagonist to be a bit more confident, because now he's also a son of the Duke. Not to mention he was crucial to that mission. Martha even said he should be walking in front. But for our protagonist, none of that matters. He noticed his brothers are way friendlier after everything that happened, and since he managed to save the oldest son's life, Khalil is wondering how that will affect the future. Tyrone said Martha should get ready too, because the king might call for all of them, and he should fix the expression he's got on his face. They really might go to the palace, but the one who contributed the most to this task was Khalil, who's a foreigner. Martha realized that if his brother can't go, he should also stay in this territory, since he hadn't contributed anything. Now he started thinking about how our protagonist can be so steady and confident. He decided to use that as motivation, because he would also try to overcome his own limitations. As soon as he got home, Khalil went to the Count's office. Welcoming the boy, he said he did a good job, and answering modestly, Khalil said he got lucky. To his father, luck is a skill too, and he captured a spy and saved his brother's lives. The news about what he did spread and reached the royal palace. Someone might come looking for him. The Count's worry is that they can't know about his origins, so he thought about sending Tyrone and Marth. Khalil said he doesn't mind that. Seeing how understanding the boy was, the Count felt grateful, saying that if there's anything he needs, just say the word. That ended up giving our protagonist an idea, and he asked him for permission to travel. The Count wants to know if he wants to leave the territory, and that's exactly what the boy wants. Worried, McGovern thought his son might not be liking that place, but the boy assured him that's not what it's about. He just wants to explore more of that big world. In fact, he needs to get involved with the future events of that land, so he needs to travel. After hearing the boy's reasoning, the Count seemed convinced, handing him an emblem. That seal is only given to those carrying out missions in the Count's name, and it can be used to get through all the checkpoints inside the Empire, but his identity won't be known. Because of that, the Count apologized for not being able to give him the credit he deserved. Their meeting is soon interrupted. Someone brought the Count the following news. They've got a problem, and it's about the prisoner they had captured. According to the bald guy, the sorcerer, R had forcibly ended his own life. The Count was shocked by the news, and our boy had to pretend he was surprised. Next to the body, they found a poisonous plant. The bald guy said he inspected the sorcerer several times and apologized for what happened. Knowing the bald guy's professional ethics, the Count said he shouldn't blame himself. But this is definitely a problem, because someone sent by the royal family should be arriving soon. To make things more complicated, the bald guy said this was the young master's first big achievement, but the Count has already dealt with this problem. Unfortunately, they'll be scolded for not taking care of the prisoner. Either way, the Count thought the truly unfortunate part is that his son won't be able to get credit for what he did. Even so, that avoids a lot of trouble. He realized the first prince will use that opportunity. While watching everything through the window, Khalil also thought Prince Leon is going to make a move, because he's like a snake, and he'll try to blame Count McGovern for what happened. Even though he's one of the continent's 5 swordmasters and a symbol of the Empire, remembering the past, Khalil realized his father's next military campaign will last almost a year, which will keep him safe from the prince's attacks during that time. Our boy needs to take advantage of the opportunity to keep hunting spies, gathering evidence to build a counter-argument. From the looks of it, he'll need to leave this place soon. But before that, he decided to stop by the library. He wished he would have found another relic, but he ended up leaving with nothing. Maybe the dragon heart was all that was there. Even so, our boy is really grateful to the old mage. Thanks to him, he got a new life. And with this power, he can change the world. Without any warning, the sword at his waist started to glow. Khalil has no idea what's going on, and the mana's glow highlighted a small piece of paper. After picking it up with his hands, he wondered what could have reacted to his mana. It was a note that had been in the box where the dragon heart was kept. You who desire it, give up if you're afraid of death. The boy thought, this is a key. Right after reading that note, the mana reacted again, and the piece of paper immediately started to fall apart. Now he's sure this was caused by his mana, which was spreading all through the place. All of it got him even more excited, realizing there could be more treasures stored in that place. Until the energy formed a sentence in the air. A message for the one who absorbed the dragon heart, the magic would only react to that person. Saying that, full of greed, the person returned to this place, and the old mage likes people like that. Khalil can't believe he's being tested again, and a voice started saying that the dragon's power is brute force, a power no one has, and that not even the old mage received. Only our protagonist will know how to develop this power, and he'll use it instinctively, in the most familiar way possible. And hearing that, the boy chose the sword. The voice told him to be careful, because he should be taken to where he's most inept, to the true extreme. Hearing that, the boy produced magical energy with his hands. Maybe that's what the mage meant to tell him. There was also another gift for this person, full of greed, and a treasure chest full of riches was revealed. In the middle of that gold, there was a peculiar bracelet. The old mage was giving our boy one more helping hand, and now he tried to pick up the bracelet. But as soon as he got close, that object behaved like a real snake, wrapping itself tightly around the boy's wrist. The voice said that was the bracelet of greed, which absorbs mana for normal people. It's a cursed item. But for him, it's a sign of good luck. If it weren't for this artifact, he wouldn't be able to control that turbulent mana, and his life would end in less than a month. Khalil had no idea this would happen in the future. The old mage said he's the only human who reached the 8th level, but the boy is the one who got the dragon heart, something that was forbidden to him, and he shouldn't be satisfied with just that. The old man wished that the boy would surpass him. He already took the first step. He survived the dragon heart, and now he's supposed to grow it with greed, until the point where no one will be able to reach him. He told the boy to do whatever he wants. Nothing will stand up to his power. He has real freedom. He shouldn't serve anyone. That's what the old mage's heir should have as his ambition. After hearing all that, Khalil started to smile, and he started wondering if what he truly wants is really to build an empire and change the future. Now that he has the power of a dragon, He doesn't need any of that. Finally, he realized what he can do with his life. He decided what he would do, make the Empire acknowledge him, because the world is divided between foreigners and those who live in the Empire. Now, with his hair completely different, Khalil promised he would change everything. And on the day he meets Olivan again, he wouldn't chicken out in front of him, because he would look him in the eyes. Leaving the library with his new look, the boy thanked the old mage, because now he wouldn't serve anyone. This is his real beginning. In the Empire's capital, the long-haired prince is intrigued and asked Prime Minister Brian for his opinion. The old man said it's too early to judge, and that there's still a lot of information missing about the case. Now that the spy isn't alive anymore, it'll be hard to get that, and officers who neglected their responsibilities should be punished. The first prince listened to that advice very carefully. He didn't expect the Lurine family to make such an aggressive move inside McGovern territory. Brian didn't think something like that could happen, because they think the Empire is beneath them. The first prince replied that this only happens because he has many enemies. The continent must see the Empire as pathetic. Now they need to investigate not only the Lurine, but also other suspicious families, and even kings from neighboring kingdoms. The prince will leave everything in time. He Prime Minister's hands, because now he wants to know if the one responsible for capturing the spy was a child. Brian said the boy was adopted by Count McGovern and is only 12 years old. The prince thought that was incredible. Admitting that the Count has a talent for finding capable people, it's a shame he isn't his supporter. To the Prime Minister, even if he's talented, he's still a child and can be influenced. It wouldn't be hard to pull him into their sphere of power, something the prince agreed with, because not every son is like his father, just like in their case. Brian said there's another weird thing too. The son responsible for capturing the spy has been absent from the Count's lands. Annoyed by that information, the prince asked if they hadn't sent an invitation from the palace to him, and now he started getting really irritated. Because his meeting had been interrupted by the second prince, who came to him just to say hello. The first prince thought they didn't care enough about each other for that kind of thing, and his brother said he'll be away from the palace for a long time. The firstborn realized he likes exploring the world. Even so, the palace is still very peaceful, and he assured him it will always stay that way. After hearing that, the second prince felt the hostility. His younger brother had something to tell. He asked if the first prince knows about the slave king. Vaguely remembering the rumor, he recalled it's the man who helped slaves and barbarians escape from prison a year ago. And the second prince, CE, assured him that this man was arrested not long ago. That ended up leaving his brother pretty surprised. The young man said Viscount Haroun is responsible for that, and that they got lucky hearing that. The long-haired one asked why his brother came there to say such trivial things. And as he left the room, he confirmed he only came to bring the news, because it's important his brother knows it too. Feeling challenged, the first prince thought his brother had considered taking the slave king as an ally, because if that's the case, then it was a huge waste of time. Finally, the meeting between them ended, but the second prince seems pretty grown up. In the middle of a huge prairie, Khalil keeps traveling with his horse. He decided it's time to take a break. The first thing he does is quench his thirst. After that, he realized he's almost reaching the border of the territory, and he's wondering if they already know he's been away from those lands. Thinking nobody would care about his disappearance, the only choice he has is to keep going. He needs to gather evidence about the Lurine spies, and after that, learn advanced magic. In the library, there were only teachings about basic magic. Even though he didn't manage to get more cores, the bracelet helps him use mana. He also needed to find a place that would sharpen his talent. There's the Ivory Tower, which has deep ties to the royal family, and the Council of the Immortals, specialized in research. Both only help mages affiliated with their factions, so he wouldn't get help from either of them. So there was only one option left for the boy, his old friend and ally, the Dragon Mog. But his hideout is really far away, and he's still asleep at this time, and with his current strength, he won't be able to get past the guards. Khalil realized he needs to level up his skills and strengthen his authority, and the place he's heading to now will help with that. The only place on the continent that doesn't have a king. The free city of Tatur. Our boy arrived in the port city of Piasta. This place is pretty busy, and in the streets, there are all kinds of merchants selling every sort of item. Khalil is relieved he managed to stop the monsters, because this city is full of life. Walking through the streets, he heard that a man had signed a contract to supply provisions to knights stationed around there. They're from the Order of Ryo. When he heard that name, our boy froze. Those knights are responsible for defending the eastern edge of the Empire, and now that Lurine's spy was discovered, he figured they'd already be on the move. Even if our boy wants to stay neutral, those knights are on Olivern's side, but it might be a good idea to look into them. Still, there's not much our protagonist can do right now, and the best thing is to stay out of trouble. He decided he'd stick to his plan. Finally, finding the Merchants' Union building, he needs to cross the Fonane River that cuts through the continent to get to Tatur. The river has powerful currents and is infested with monsters. Only a skilled navigator can get through it safely. Once inside, the building, the boy said he's looking for a guild, preferably one that can get him to Tatur. crossing the river. Since he needed money, he took a bit from Elliot's reserves without telling him, because war is coming. The receptionist apologized to the boy, because there's no guild that can take the route he mentioned. That left Khalil really surprised, annoyed. He said the Ravat Guild can do it, but the receptionist had never heard of them. People in that hall said crossing the river is the same as asking to die. To reach the free city, you have to go through the lawless port ruled by the Golden Lion. Khalil looks really confused. He doesn't know what happened. Looking at the receptionist, he said Ravat's leader is named Suan Hazer, and she assured him she'd never heard those names in her life. Outside, the boy is wondering what happened, remembering he met that person when he was 15, so there's still some time left. Walking through the streets, he saw a public commotion. The citizens were furious at someone who had helped the barbarians, and they wanted to punish him right there. That's when our protagonist saw that prisoner being tormented. The sight left his eyes wide in shock, because that man is Suan Hazer. But the boy has no idea what's going on. In the conversation between the princes, they were talking about the slave king, the man who'd been arrested, and the one who got that nickname is Suan. Our protagonist is wondering why he's in this state, and a man pushing the crowd back told them to get out of his way, saying that criminal committed an unforgivable betrayal, and people shouldn't even look at him. Khalil recognized Viscount Haroon, but he doesn't know what he's doing there, since his territory is very far from Piasta. He's also in charge of protecting the borders, helping families like Valsar and McGovern. It seems the Viscount has a personal grudge against that prisoner, and people keep saying he's a barbarian supporter, a filthy animal. On the other hand, he's also the person Khalil is looking for. He just never imagined finding him like this. He needs to get his thoughts straight, because he was introduced to that man through Olivern to plan a surprise attack on Lurine. Definitely a memorable man. What the boy doesn't get is how this prisoner will become someone so important in 3 years. No matter how hard he tries to make sense of it, everything still feels really strange. And the only person who can take him to the free city is Suan. No way can his life end in that place. Our protagonist decided he's going to save him. To do that, he went to Baron Raige's mansion. The place is heavily guarded by soldiers. Watching those men, Khalil realized they're experienced soldiers. But if he's careful with how he approaches, nothing bad will happen. Raige used to be a commoner, but became a noble, piling up a huge amount of wealth, but supporting the first prince brought about his downfall. Since he didn't trust anyone, he had several escape routes, and when he found a door carved into the rock, Khalil realized things were the same as he remembered. Beard. He discovered that passage in his past life. He did it because of an order from Olivern, who was looking for proof of tax evasion or illegal profits. Khalil didn't think that knowledge would help him now. That place reeks because it's connected to the city's sewer system. He soon found a ventilation duct that connects to the prison's underground area. If he had an adult body, he wouldn't be able to fit into that space. But now that he's much younger, being small has its advantages. The prison corridors are watched by armed guards, and the slave king is inside a cell, with his hands tied. He regrets what he did, because he thought about what he could become as a noble by doing that. Lost in his thoughts alone, a guard told him to shut up. After banging on the bars, he left the prisoner alone. Despite everything, Suan is grateful he didn't break anything, and grabbing a hairpin, he realized it was time to escape. But a suspicious noise put him on alert. He was hearing the footsteps of 3 people, at least 1 guard and a knight, but he can't tell who that third person is. The moment the second prince entered his cell, the guard ordered the prisoner to stand up, because the prince wanted to speak to him directly. Our protagonist is hidden in the ventilation duct, and realized someone wanted to talk to that man. Olivern said he'd always wanted to talk to him, and watching through the hole in the ventilation duct, Khalil was impressed, because the prisoner he'd been looking for really was there. The second prince of the Empire, E, was there too, and he called that man the Slave King. It raised a lot of questions for our protagonist, who wants to know what the prince's intentions are. After being called the Slave King, Suan said he doesn't understand what the prince meant, and the boy said the barbarians call him that, because he was the hero who helped the slaves escape the Empire's lands. But the prince thinks that man sent the slaves to the free city of Tator before the king gave the order to hunt them down. The prisoner stays silent. Khalil now understands why the Slave King had disappeared right after the hunt for heretics ended, realizing that Olivern had allied himself with him. Now that they were talking, the prince got straight to the point, revealing what he needs that prisoner's help with. Suan, sarcastically, asked how a simple man could help someone from the royal family. The guard wanted to cut his head off, but the prince stopped it from happening. Seeing that the boy was important, Suan asked if he was the king's first or second son, because the rumors say the third son is kind of stupid, and the prince realized he still hadn't introduced himself, formally saying he's Olivern, the second prince, and that he went there to ask that man a favor, saying he wants to save the barbarian people. As he must already know, the northern tribes are already dying. The prince believes those peoples, and the people of the empire, are the same. That's why he wants to help them at any cost, hoping that man can contribute to his plans. Hearing all that, Khalil started to get deeply angry, realizing that behavior was nothing but deception and lies. This is all just an act. He'd been impressed by it in his past life too, and it looks like Suan was convinced by those words. Until he revealed, smiling, that he hadn't been fooled, telling the prince not to talk nonsense in front of him. Even if he is a prince, what he asked for is completely impossible. The old guard got deeply furious, almost having a very serious stroke, and he was ready to cut the prisoner's head off, but the prince stopped him once again. The one at his side is Count Redak. Khalil is surprised that this old man is there. He was the instructor of the three princes, and the commander of the royal knights. Even at 70, he's still a formidable knight. One of the 5 who walked the continent after the oracle. If things get out of control, the old man will be a big problem. The prince asked why the prisoner doubts him. In response, Suan asked if he knows how much it costs to save the life of a single barbarian. 5 gold coins per person. Someone in the capital can survive 5 months on that amount, and only those who can pay can cross the river. If money is the problem, the prince assured him he can give as much as he needs. So the prisoner asked if he knows what life is like in the free city. People have to pay 4 gold coins to the Golden Lion, the lord of those lands. The remaining coin is for them to try to get by. If they manage to survive somehow, and if that's not enough, their lives are going to end up getting cut short. Beck. Oz, the land is really dangerous. This isn't a problem you can solve with just money. Suan has witnessed countless deaths, leaving people in that city something the prince would never understand. In fact, the prisoner admits he's never saved anyone, and he couldn't even if he wanted to. And he ordered the prince to leave him alone, revealing that his hidden eye has a red iris. Khalil was surprised to see that eye color. Since in his past life it was always covered up, that means he's a survivor of the Red Eye tribe, wiped out by the Empire a long time ago. Now he understands why Suan was so afraid of the Empire. Furious, the prisoner said that being saved or executed makes no difference, but if the boy wants to become some kind of saint to save the barbarians, he should hand the free city over to him, because it's the only place they can live in peace. Khalil didn't expect this man to be so fired up, because when he found him, he was calm and seemed like a capable leader. Olivern said the prisoner still needs time, but he won't give up on him, because it'd be a shame to lose someone like that. As he left the cell, he promised they'd meet again soon. The door finally closes, and our protagonist is slowly starting to understand how it all happened. Suan teamed up with the prince, even though he hated the Empire, because he put an end to the hunt against heretics. The problem is that Khalil knows he'll change once he becomes emperor, and he won't let that happen. Suan is now completely alone in his prison. Hearing another noise, he started to stay alert. Khalil had taken down the guards, and opening the prison door, asked if Suan managed to take off his shackles, because it was time to stand up, since he was being recruited. Startled, he asked who this kid is, and our protagonist said he came there to recruit him. Showing a few gold coins, he said that's the price to cross the river. But now that he heard that conversation, he believes that's not necessary anymore, because he won't give a single coin to the Golden Lion. Suan thought it was his unlucky day first, the prince, now this crazy kid. Khalil promised he'd hand Tatur over to that man, and hearing that promise, he was really surprised. But now they need to escape this prison. Suan has his doubts about the promise, because the Empire hasn't been able to take that place until now. And there's no way a child could do it. He even considered he might be going crazy because of all the beatings he took in prison. Khalil stopped walking and said he wouldn't regret anything, asking Suan to pay attention to what's about to happen. The boy would go to Tatur to build a reputation there, and one day it would be a place where the barbarians could live. Suan doesn't know what he wants, but he's not willing to team up with some Empire brat. Khalil said it's understandable that someone with that cursed eye would hate the Empire so much, especially when they wipe out barbarians. A lot of lives have been lost since the heretic hunt. Olivern will put an end to that law when he takes the throne, but only a small number of barbarians still be alive. Khalil, however, doesn't know what the boy's intentions are in doing that, and now he can save a lot of lives, and he's counting on Suan for that, so he asked for his help. The prisoner said the prince was crazy, but this kid beats him by a mile. He asked if he at least has the skill to get him out of prison, and for our protagonist, if that's all he needs to do, he was disappointed. Finally, they're found by the other guards. Suan is completely terrified, but Khalil realized he's about to have some fun, because he's stealing a major ally from Olivern. Using magic on his sword, the boy unleashed a huge attack, aimed at the ground. That kicked up a massive cloud of debris. Since he destroyed one of the prison walls, that was the perfect chance to run, and now the two of them are heading toward the forest. After running for a few minutes, Suan was out of breath and exhausted. He said the boy destroyed a noble's house without hesitating. That was really bold. At that moment, Khalil dispelled the magic that was hiding the true color of his hair and eyes. That's when the prisoner realized his true identity. Just like him, Khalil is also a barbarian, but Suan called him a liar because he shouldn't be able to use magic. This is totally out of reach for the barbarians, so they're hunted down, since they're seen as heretics. Without even answering him, Khalil asked if that man doesn't want to change the world, because his help is extremely necessary, and the truth is, he's being drawn in by the protagonist's words. The river they need to cross is really stormy. In the ship's path, there are several whirlpools, but our protagonist is determined to make it to the other side. Even though the route is dangerous, he's impressed by the strength of that river's current. Suan thought the boy's calm was really weird. Anyone in this situation would be terrified. It's still hard to believe he's a barbarian. From his clothes, he looks like he comes from a noble family, not to mention he can even use magic. Suan said the path is going to get even more treacherous. The boy needs to stay alert. If he falls into the water, he can't be rescued. Khalil told the ship's captain to stop worrying and keep sailing. Suan was a little annoyed, but he realized anyone crazy enough to cause a prison break can't be right in the head. He doesn't even seem like a child. He seems like a veteran warrior from many battles. Suan is about to throw a hook. He threw it toward a rock that was nearby, managing to tie the rope successfully. Now he needs to tie the other end to the ship. That started causing major instability in the vessel. That's how you sail through that current. Khalil is impressed that Suan is doing this using only physical strength, without any help from magic. He's definitely a very talented person. And seeing that the captain was really busy working, the boy decided to ask him a bunch of questions. Wanting to know what he thinks about the barbarians' living conditions on the continent, Suan said, "The question is stupid, because those people can barely survive, and thanks to the heretic Unts, they aren't even living as slaves anymore." The boy should know the answer just by looking at him. He's mixed blood, and even so, he was hunted down. Anyone with any relation to barbarians isn't considered a citizen in the empire. Khalil, who decided to act like a 10-year-old kid, didn't stop asking questions, and wanted to know what that tattoo on the captain's wrist means. He said it's nothing, but it's something related to his mother's tribe, the forbidden love between her and a man from the empire. Khalil said the captain has a certain bitterness in his soul because of his family. Suan told the boy once again to hold on tight to the boat. Because the route was about to get a bit complicated, they're surrounded by whirlpools. Getting through that ordeal, the captain cut a rope. They made it through the most dangerous stretch of the trip. Khalil is really impressed by his skill. But looking at the water, the captain saw a dangerous shadow. He knows exactly what that means. A huge sea monster appeared, and that creature was dangerously close to the vessel. That's a Sea King. Suan was terrified, because he can't do anything against that creature. Khalil asked the captain to stay calm, because a true Sea King is much bigger than that creature, which is actually just a river serpent, a baby Sea King. Even so, the creature tried to bite them, destroying part of the boat. Channeling mana into his sword, the boy realized it was his turn to attack. Charging confidently toward the creature, he managed to dodge its next attack. Now, he had a clear opening to land a killing blow, driving his sword into that creature's head, focusing more and more mana as he delivers the strike. Finishing his attack with a horizontal slashing blow, the captain was shocked by all that potential. He has to be at least a knight to be able to do that. But for our protagonist, all of that was easy, and the dangerous creature was taken down quickly. Now he can go back to being a 1-2-year-old kid and ask a bunch of annoying questions, telling the captain to continue the trip. Tatur is actually an artificial island, and at last they arrived there. Also called the Free City, the last sanctuary of the barbarians, who are there to flee the heretic hunts. The center of this whole operation is Captain Suan, because he's the only one who can cross the river safely. He said there's nowhere to dock except at the lawless port, but it should be fine, because he knows a lot of people there still. It could be dangerous for the boy. Khalil remembered some words he said to the prince, and he's sure that was a lie, but Suan doesn't know what he's talking about. Khalil knows it's impossible for refugees to have 5 gold coins, and yet their numbers in that place keep growing. That means Suan must be the one responsible for paying those fees to the Golden Lion. The boy believes the captain is going to become the center of this tough situation for the barbarians, and he made it clear he won't have to worry about the Golden Lion right now, and should keep bringing refugees to this island. As soon as he got off boat, some armed men came up to our boy, but he said he would keep his promise to Suan, and he would hand that city over to him. The captain still can't believe it, but the boy who had brought him to that island started fighting the armed men. At first, those thugs thought they were going to win, until they were completely overpowered by the kid. Khalil left those defeated men behind. Now that they were hurt, they asked who he was, and the boy pointed his sword at one of them, ordering him to take him to the Golden Lion, or things would get really messy. In the Golden Lion's office, a man was begging for mercy, but it didn't help at all, because he was turned into an inanimate object, and his body was thrown onto the floor, becoming decoration in that place, just like several people before him, who, according to the Golden Lion, were given a fair chance to bet their own life with a coin. His real name is Kuran. His employees think he has a really cruel hobby. Every day they have to clean bodies out of that place, and the Golden Lion comes up with a new excuse every day to kill someone. But he thinks he's very merciful, because he gives a big opportunity to those who would die anyway. During his moment of wise reflection, someone forced their way into the office. Getting really angry, he asked his lackeys who did that. They said they would check, and the Golden Lion realized he was feeling magical energy. But he soon turned his attention back to what mattered, not letting his employees remove the bodies from that place. At the port, one of those violent men said the Golden Lion is in the tallest building around, and he'd take our protagonist there, if he was spared. Khalil thanked that good man for the information he'd gotten, but seeing coldness in his eyes, the man begged for mercy one more time. Suwon had to step in, asking for the man to be spared, because he was just a refugee. But our protagonist doesn't care about that. If he were a good person, he would have kept his integrity. Suwon was scared by that kind of coldness. Khalil is sure that if he became a subordinate of an evil man, then he definitely can't be a decent person. And he wanted to know Suwon's answer to that big moral dilemma. Should the refugee be spared or condemned? His silence was the answer our protagonist wanted, forcing that man's life to end. That city doesn't have just freedom, and that's not something you can hand over easily. The man who just found out whether there's life after death made his own choice. Khalil told Suwon not to feel responsible for anything. The truth is, he feels guilty for bringing refugees to that place. Khalil said the solution to this is to transform that island. Hidden in the shadows, the man watches our boy. His presence seems threatening. Revealing himself to them, he started asking for help. That man looked badly hurt. Khalil, when he looked back, was surprised. Because he knows that's Aiden Hamill, a man said he managed to escape those bandits, so he needs help. But because he knows who he is, Khalil started smiling, realizing that Olivern is doing an excellent job. There were 7 pillars in the rise of the Olivern Empire. Bran, a formidable strategist. Surga, a mage with great skills. There was also Meister, a merchant known across the whole continent, and the war genius, Zakin, a cold and cruel man. Suwon was also one of those pillars, just like our protagonist. Lastly, there was that man, Aiden, an expert at getting information across the continent. Khalil is thinking about when he managed to infiltrate that place. That's why Olivern left Suwon behind, because he was already planning to take Tatur no matter what. Recognizing that man, Suwon said I brought him to the island along with his sister. Our protagonist didn't know that detail, and was told they arrived together. Aiden said he ended up getting separated from her while escaping, and wants to find her as fast as possible. But our boy figures it's a lie. He believes the woman who was with him is Zook, who despite her huge assets, big in size and extremely symmetrical, is a formidable assassin. If that guess is right, the Golden Lion is in danger. Aiden is wondering who the blonde-haired child is, because the goal was to make Swan and the Golden Lion fight each other. While they were talking, a voice said the fugitive had been found, and near him there were other people. Those armed men decided they would arrest everyone. Those are the Golden Lion's subordinates. Khalil wasn't set on running away, so he decided to jump right in front of those men, using his great mastery with the sword to teach them a lesson. Before the fight could end start, it was already over. Now that Aiden knows this kid is really skilled with a sword, he got scared he already knew about Suwon's daughter, who got help from a boy. He just didn't expect him to be this strong. Our protagonist asked if that man wanted to meet his sister, and offered to help him, but he's already sick of watching that cheap act, even knowing where that man's weapons are hidden, since he's ready to pull off a surprise attack at any time. Khalil assumed Aiden knew where the Golden Lion was. He said the lion is in the tallest building around, and there should be about 50 underlings with him suspicious. Khalil figured there were at least twice that many. Suwon got scared and doesn't know how to approach his enemy. For our protagonist, the solution is simple. He wanted to face everyone head-on, realizing Olivern used those men's talent to take the island, but this time things will be different. Turning to Aiden, Khalil asked for his help, telling him not to dodge the question, because he already knows the whole truth, and he needs to borrow his magic for a moment. Khalil is determined to take control of that city. The Golden Lion and his men are looking for the source of that weird noise. That's when one of his men warned they were in big trouble. There was fire everywhere, and it was coming from the harbor, specifically from the boats. As soon as he saw all that, the Golden Lion panicked, because the fire had spread out of control. Before the Golden Lion found out, our protagonist had created a bit of fire, throwing his magic toward that flammable material. In a few minutes, everything would be completely chaotic. It's time for Aiden to use his technique to help too, and he started focusing hard, sending wind over the flames. That deadly combo spread the fire even more the flames Khalil had made. Now a bunch of objects were catching fire. Only one boat there was out of the flames' reach. The smoke will also make it harder for the men to see the invaders now. Things got easy for Khalil. He told Suwon to go protect the ship so it wouldn't drift away from the harbor, while Aiden keeps using the wind. Khalil assured them he'd handle things now, heading toward the island. The men left behind don't seem that confident in his potential. Now the Golden Lion is furious because he lost a lot of his fleet. His men know they need to put out the fire, but the smoke is messing everything up. Before they could start working, a mysterious presence began taking lives. The golden lion realized the enemy was hidden in the smoke, but his men kept dropping one after another. Desperate, the bandit boss tried to find that enemy, but what he ended up finding was a wound, caused by something sharp, slashed across his shoulder. Khalil was only getting started, and now the golden lion managed to find him. The young boy knows that man is cruel, and that he's ended a lot of lives, which is a big coincidence, because our boy has ended a lot of lives too. Even though he got hurt, that man believes the kid is just being arrogant, and to his surprise, his wound regenerated instantly. Khalil already knew the cut wasn't deep. He's limited by strength in his current body, and he'd like to use aura, but he needs to keep hiding his abilities. Recognizing the boy's skill with the sword, the bandit knows he's not a beginner, and he's going to go all out, so he'll regret what he did. Watching that technique, Khalil understood it was the water sword. It gathers that element into a huge whirlpool. While the two battle, Suwon managed to protect the ship. Aiden is intrigued by this kid he jumped straight toward the fire with a ton of courage. Suwon praised the man's effort using wind magic, but he admitted it was hard, his hands won't stop shaking. Still, Aiden realizes the plans got messed up, because the main goal was to get Suwon involved in that fight. He knows that eventually the Slave King would get out of prison, but that boy ruined everything looking more like a child than a teenager. He can beat trained assassins easily. His sword technique is formidable, and he uses second-class spells he could get way stronger as he matures. Aiden realizes that if this boy allies with them, it would be really good. He decided he would confirm the boy's abilities with his own eyes. Meanwhile, Khalil is completely focused on that battle, dodging the water whirlpool caused by the golden lion, who's also feeling challenged in that fight. With his blade being pushed back by the boy's strength, looks like the two of them are evenly matched, which makes the bandit really furious. Watching that attack, Khalil realized it's like he's being hit with a pillar of water, a crushing force, but he manages to dodge everything, keeping pressure on the bandit the whole time. He noticed the kid keeps aiming for his neck at every chance he gets, and that sword in his hands is mysterious too. Whenever it blocks his water, it can undo the spell. Trying to scare Khalil, he said Khalil was going to lose that fight, no matter what he had to do. And he said he'd feed the fish with whatever was left of his body, and threw out more insults, trying to scare him. Khalil said he talks too much. He doesn't even sound like the boss of the bandits. The Golden Lion's strategy ended up being used against him, and that made him even angrier. With a dark look, Khalil said he knows Kiran Majid very well. That seemed to throw the bandit completely off balance, because he never told his real last name to anyone. Khalil knows he's the legitimate son of a Navy admiral, loyal to the Empire, but who was labeled a traitor. His mother ended up dying at her husband's hands, and he lived a miserable life. All of that was caused by the rise of the current emperor, which ended up ruining the career of Lopez Majid, the Golden Lion's father. But bringing up that man's family problems only fueled his rage, and this time, he created an even bigger whirlpool of water. His intention is to end the fight, no matter the cost. That technique will keep chasing the boy wherever he goes, until his life is over. Our protagonist waits patiently for the water to get close. Dodging the first attacks, the Golden Lion says he has nowhere to run. His sword is ready to decide that fight. Because his fencing technique carries the weight of his body, believing a child would never be able to parry it. The attacks are getting dangerously close. Khalil decided it was time to make the first move, perfectly blocking that bandit's attack. But that wasn't all. Little by little, he was losing his sword, being completely disarmed by the boy's defense, who now had the chance to land a clean, powerful strike, slicing up the Golden Lion's body. When he was in that cursed tower, Khalil had to face an uncountable number of creatures. Many of them had thick armor, others had liquid forms. There were also ones that could fly, and ones that couldn't be cut with just physical strength. The experience was a real hell, and Khalil discovered a level beyond the peak of swordsmanship. The 5 steps of the sword, which are insanely strong stances. The bigger the step, the greater the power. And now he had used the first one. From the look on the bandit's face, it might not be strong, but it's definitely painful. Now that he's been disarmed, and he's hurt, he looks drained. Realizing that if the kid's arm were just a little longer, he'd be without his own head right now. Only now does he see this isn't a normal child. And looking into his enemy's eyes, he understood that the one-way trip to the nearest isekai was getting closer. Using his rage as motivation, he yelled that he wasn't going to lose to some brat, creating an even bigger volume of water to use against him. Now that he was clearly out of control, Khalil managed to find an opening in his opponent. Anger shuts down rational thinking, making the user's sword ineffective. That way, the boy moves in with a lot of confidence, which scared the Golden Lion, who realized his enemy was even faster. It didn't take long for him to get hurt again. The pain was so intense it made the bandit drop his sword again. But the fun was only just starting. Khalil still hadn't stopped crushing him. Wanting to stretch out his fun a bit more, his next move was a kick. That sent the bandit flying away. Our boy stays composed and calm, but that kick to the ribs was brutal. The Golden Lion is spitting blood. Admitting the kid's skill is really impressive, and he told him to go on and just finish his life already. If he disappeared from that port, everyone on that island would become his enemies. Aiden was spying on the fight and understood that statement was true. Even if the boy is very strong, he can't get around that situation. The port is just the entrance to Tatur, which is an even more dangerous place. That's when our protagonist said he'd gotten something wrong. He didn't go there to fight, he went there to make that city his. And he was already sick of talking to that man. With his patience already at its limit, Khalil raised his sword to disconnect the golden lion's head from his body. Aiden watched all of it from the best seat in the house, completely crushed, because his plans got messed up. It's only a matter of time before the powerful find out what happened, and that's going to trash everything he's done so far, because he wasn't expecting that kid to be this dangerous. As if all that wasn't enough, Khalil called him by name, because he wants to know what he's doing there. Lying once again, Aiden said he was worried about his sister, but honestly, he has no idea how he got found out. He said he looked for her but couldn't find her. Khalil knows she must be hiding somewhere watching them, but keeping up the act, Khalil said they need to look in the city, and he'll help him with that. Aiden has this growing feeling that he's been yied, like the boy can see right through him. There are 4 crime bosses on this island, and when they find out what happened, they'll start making moves. So Khalil broke the golden lion's sword because the boss's token was hidden inside it. Khalil wanted to know what his sword is made of, because it's really tough, and it destroyed a sword made of a special material like it was paper. Suwon asked if that kid was going to become a boss, but our main character's body assured him, no actually, he's going to hunt the others, showing the token of the one he'd defeated, so they wouldn't get challenged by weaklings, and could enjoy a few privileges. What he's really looking for is inside the city, just 1 token isn't enough. A pre-diabetic man is sleeping, and keeping him company, a few very well-built girls. Khalil interrupts the hypertensive guy's nap, asking if he's one of the bosses, and the guy with messed up triglycerides wakes up in a panic, asking who that kid is. While the very well-built girls run out of the room, the little planet called out for Carve, but our protagonist said the man with that name is sleeping forever outside, just like everyone who was working with him. Khalil knows this boss is a rich man, and now he was getting shaken down by a kid. Showing him the token, Khalil said he's the new boss of the lawless port. That's when the bald guy realized it belonged to the golden lion. There's only one thing that can mean. He went to sleep with the fishes. The boy said the fight was fair, and that man was a witness. The bald guy recognized Suwon Hazer, and with those arguments, he accepted the boy's authority. Since he hadn't been told anything, he realized all the port's men had been defeated, and being a pretty rational guy, he politely asked what the boy wanted from him. Khalil wants to know more about the black market, because that man with type 2 diabetes is the gateway to it. So it's time for him to start working. The bald guy said, it's way too early to open the market, and it takes 2 bosses for it to be started, and that's when Khalil remembered he has a token. Not to mention, right in front of him, there's another boss, and if he didn't want more trouble, he should start working immediately. What Khalil really wants is to find an item hidden there, something that still hasn't been revealed to the world. This artificial island has 3 things the continent doesn't: goods, freedom, and information. Anything can be found there, and traded in secret. That's why on the first day of the year, nobles from the continent go there in secret to take part in the black market, and that's why this island stays a free city. After being gently convinced, the diabetic building decided to open the black market. The man who helped him there asked if the other bosses know about this. Shaking with fear, he said he'd talk to the others later, and strongly recommended that the man treat this kid well, and he decided to ask who that boy was. But knowing the danger that kind of attitude could cause, the man with completely messed up triglycerides ordered the door to be opened. And either way, the other man got a lot more obedient. Shaking at the thought of payback from the other bosses, he made it clear he has nothing to do with it, because it's barely ever opened during the year, and he wasn't expecting to open the black market after 3 months. This has never happened in his whole life. Khalil thought about it for a brief moment, asking why the market opened in 3 months, since it's not following its normal timing, and the man swore he doesn't know anything. It could have been the previous boss. Khalil thought it might be Dushala's doing, the market's former owner. She was trained to be a deadly assassin, and she'd definitely act if she knew someone opened that market. The attendant said the rules are simple. When you enter a shop, you have to leave with something you bought. All he'll have is just 1 hour. Our protagonist told him not to worry, because it would take way less than that. A bunch of weapons are on display in that market. It's been a long time since he's been back there, and it feels like a completely different world. If you've got money, everything there is for sale, but the boy knows exactly where he's going. The time limit isn't a problem right now. Immediately opening the door he wanted. Inside the shop, a man is waiting. The boy was about to touch something, but the man said the artifact is broken, and that it shouldn't be touched. And he doesn't believe he got any customers, saying the boy is in the wrong place, because there's only centuries-old junk in there. Khalil said he's looking for something like that, an object humans don't know about. The old man seemed interested in that. Khalil knows that old man isn't human, but the gnome Calip, knowing he recognizes his true identity, the old man got worried. After all, that boy is just a human, so to calm him down, Khalil revealed the true color of his hair, confirming he wasn't a normal human. But that only made the gnome even more scared, since barbarians shouldn't be able to use magic. Khalil learned from his dragon friend that gnomes used to bribe his race with treasures, and they're really good at making magic weapons. And unlike what the rumors say, they weren't wiped out. There's still one who delivers items to him. Khalil wants what he was going to deliver to the Platinum Dragon. Even more frightened, the gnome asked how he knows that. The boy told him to calm down because he didn't come to hurt anyone, but he knows the item Mog asked for is exceptional. The gnome didn't like that casual tone, because he respects that dragon a lot, the one who once saved him. Khalil wanted to see the item, because he knows the dragon is still asleep, and he also knows the gnome offers items as a way to keep promises, and that he still has 3 years to fulfill it. Now the gnome is really anxious. He said the boy is just talking nonsense, and offered a few weapons for him to look over. They're treasures that are hard to find even deep inside dungeons. He thought all of that is really expensive, and that the boy will definitely end up spending all his money. After looking it over, he asked if that's everything the gnome has. And more scared, the gnome said all of that is hard to find. Khalil realized the rumor about gnomes is true. They always try to hide a few things. There's a ring there that he wants. One that has 4 fangs. That's what he wants to buy in that shop. So the gnome handed him a box. That's a real masterpiece, enchanted with gnome magic. A treasure given by Mog to humanity after the war against the Oracle. The fangs use the user's power to create a barrier. The more power it draws out, the stronger the barrier it creates, with one small catch. There's no limit to how much power it can absorb, which can be fatal. Since Khalil's constitution is very different, he can use it without any problem. The gnome doesn't know how he ended up in that shop, but he wants to know if the boy has money to buy it. Opening a bag full of treasures, he asked if that was enough. Since he's a gnome, he should recognize the quality of it, and the old man was completely blown away. Those are magic stones, gems that hold elemental power. With items that rare being offered to him, the gnome immediately let go of the ring, forgetting that it had once belonged to him. Our boy put the artifact on one of his fingers. Right away, the fangs pierced his skin. Feeling tired, the gnome wanted to ask him something, because the boy seemed to understand a lot about his race, and he wanted to know if he knows what happened to the other gnomes. Khalil said he's not sure he met them once in the past, and he doesn't know where they live, but he remembers the name of the place. Hearing that, the old man got pretty anxious, because he wants to know where his kind are hiding. Khalil said he could share it, but they were in the black market, and that information was valuable. The old man realized that was more important than the wealth he has. Khalil can be pretty crafty sometimes, and he was selling information to the person who told it to him. In his past life, he learned from the old man that he could have saved his people if he'd known where they were before the war. Khalil got that information when they met for the first time. The black market gatekeeper heard the trapdoor being opened. Surprised that the boy is already outside, showing one of the items he'd gotten, he said it wouldn't take long. The gatekeeper was impressed that the kid really did buy something in there. That item wouldn't be found even in a dungeon. That gauntlet is an amazing item. Besides having a ton of resilience, it's got defense against magic. Gnomes are really good at making stuff like that. Walking down the street, an assassin came up to the boy. He was determined to end his life early. But that gauntlet had a hidden blade. Khalil managed to defend himself easily, turning his attacker into an inanimate object. And because he used his new gauntlet, he thought it was pretty interesting. Suan came running over to him to see if he's okay. Only then did he realize the boy bought that gauntlet. Khalil confirmed it, but he's not going to tell him about the ring he got too. Suan said rumors are aller, Edie spreading, and more people are going to show up trying to attack him. But our boy doesn't care about that. He hopes the other bosses hear the news soon, and he asked what Aiden is doing, but the captain can't say, because he hasn't seen him in a while. Khalil decided he wouldn't make a big deal out of it. It's time to meet with Dushala. That made Suan worried, because it's the middle of the night. It hasn't even been a full day since they got to that island, and they'd already met almost all the bosses. In her residence, Dushala found out the black market had been opened, and since she's the real owner, she didn't like that, believing Kama could only do that with her permission. That move couldn't be ignored. She believes he teamed up with the person who ended the Golden Lion's life. It's going to be hard to fight that, since that person is staying silent. And since the child seems to know they exist, he won't be an easy target. She ordered her servant to go to the gnome's shop to find out what was bought. The man knows the rules forbid that. But since she made the rules, she demanded he obey, because she wants to tear that kid apart. In the middle of their conversation, the doors were thrown open violently. Khalil said nobody needs to go out looking for him, and he warned those people not to try anything stupid. He doesn't want to end lives early, but he also wouldn't hesitate to do it. Hoping the woman shows some common sense, her servants realized the child is dangerous, but she told them to calm down, since he came there of his own free will. She asked the boy to take a seat. By candlelight, they started talking. She wants to know what made the boy go to that island, and he said he'll get straight to the point. He'd like to propose a deal to her, but she seems skeptical, thinking the boy is way too greedy, since he's already caused a lot of trouble in that place. He admits he's still not satisfied, the woman said. Not everything in the world can be reached. Even that free city has some rules. Showing his sword, he asked if that's true, throwing the blade toward the woman. It happened so fast she didn't have time to react. Lucky for her, the boy didn't aim at her, but hit something that was hidden behind the curtain. Khalil praised that stealth skill, making it clear it's completely useless. An assassin was hiding in there, and now he's become an inanimate object. On top of that, Khalil knows the tea is poisoned. He said the woman's methods are outdated. Kurin was an old noble, Kama is a barbarian, and Suan, a hybrid. The island is a fascinating place. While that woman is an Eastern citizen, scared, Dushala wants to know how the boy knows so much. Khalil knows why she ran from her city over there. Everyone is trained to be assassins. Training so brutal that only half the people manage to survive. She went to that city where the barbarians gathered, because she didn't want to be a puppet in other people's hands. But for the island to work, it depends on the black market running from the nobles. Dushala found herself dependent on them once again. And I'd know she only managed to avoid the empire because of the other bosses, but the city won't survive like that. Because it's impossible to escape the nobles' reach, Khalil had a question to ask. He wanted to know if Dushala has bigger ambitions, to see a bigger world. And she asked if the bratty boy thinks it's easy to run a city that's surrounded by several kingdoms. He admitted the job is challenging, but he's very hopeful, and said the bigger world he told her about isn't just one country, telling her he wants to create an invisible empire that will reach the continent. Suan waited outside, while our protagonist talks with that woman, until the captain finally hears the door open. Feeling relieved that the boy got out of there safely, Khalil's impressed, because Suan actually seemed worried about him, and that makes total sense, since the kid went to talk to Dushala alone. Unlike Kama, the woman has connections with the nobles, and now they've acted against those people. Suan now wants to know how Khalil came to the conclusion that the woman would accept his proposal. He wasn't sure. He had to take a risk. Retaliation can't happen right now, and if the nobles get involved in this, the delicate balance could come to an end. But they've got a lot to do now, because the hunt for heretics continues, and they need to save those lives. The problem is bringing all the barbarians to this place. Khalil wants to draw those people in through the fame of the Slave King. Swan is the only one who can do that, and Khalil wants the refugees to come on their own, reminding Swan that he promised to hand that island over to him. For that, he asked if it would be necessary to take out all the chiefs in that place, gripping Swan's tattooed hand tightly, saying that he lied about where it came from, because the Red Eye tribe doesn't have that mark. He's the fourth chief of Tater, the ring's champion. That revelation left Swan stunned, because he never imagined the kid knew that. Now that he'd revealed it, the kid asked the captain to show up at the arena when the sun rises. When the oracle arrived, Khalil was summoned to the king's palace, but nobody believed his words, because he was a barbarian. That's why he had to prove his competence. That's when Olivern offered him a deal in front of all the nobles. If he managed to become the ring's champion, everyone would accept him. Khalil ended up becoming the youngest champion, going undefeated for 75 fights. That's how he got the mark of victory, a tattoo on the wrist, identical to the one Suan has. Khalil is once again inside that arena, and he was already waiting for the captain. Suan is wearing his gladiator armor. This is the first time the kid will have to face him, and he knows he's a formidable warrior. Khalil is excited about it, because now he's found an opponent he can use all his strength against. The true king of the ring is ready to defend his title. Watching his stance, Khalil recognized the 8th form of Valvant. This man was the king of martial arts, and the only purpose of his life was to perfect his technique. Reaching the pinnacle of combat, Dev, loping the 8th form of Valvant, Suan managed to become the king of the ring, using only 2 forms he learned in his youth. If he learned the other forms, he could become a force of nature. Now he charges at our protagonist. They say Valvant, in his final days, regretted not training Suan even though he didn't take disciples. Our protagonist realized he needs to change that in this timeline. Finally, the two collide. Suan is a true gladiator. He uses his gauntlets efficiently, but Khalil manages to strike back with his sword. And the kid realized those gauntlets aren't ordinary, and asked if they're from the Muir family. Suan confirmed where they came from, saying he got them as a prize after winning, saying that artifacts made by the dwarves have the toughest steel. Khalil, while dodging the blows, agrees with that. He didn't expect the king of the ring to be able to block his attacks so easily. On the other hand, Suan realized he'd underestimated that child. There's no way he's this good at such a young age. The only plausible explanation is that he's been training since he was in his mother's womb. Khalil is now ready to use an even stronger technique, channeling aura into the blade. Suan thought it was that, but looking closer, that light was different. Not knowing what it is, he could only see the obvious. This is dangerous. And that movement is different from anything the kid has done so far. A technique that doesn't depend on the blade's cut, because the raw force is crushing. Khalil's strike completely destroyed the king of the ring's gauntlets, and the force of the impact threw his body back, stopping only when he slammed into the nearest concrete wall. With his armor destroyed, Suwon is still trying to understand the nature of that attack, and it's very different from a mana blade. The fight is over. Khalil held out his hand to the king of the ring, asking if he was satisfied with that outcome. Suwon had fought with everything he had, and even so, he met defeat. That brought him peace of mind. He doesn't question the result. Khalil thought that was really dangerous. If he hadn't controlled his strength, he could have finished off an ally. Our kid did that because now he's defeated 2 chiefs, and he hopes to get a bit of peace with the reputation he's earned. But for him, there's someone else capable of running that place. This man is Suwon, a hybrid between barbarians and those from the Empire, the perfect candidate for this task. Khalil told him that the time had finally come. It's time for them to find Tatur's secret. A proposal was made to Dushala. It was her talent that allowed that place to exist, with a fighting arena and the black market. But even that has its limits. With the fame of being a lawless place, they managed to attract barbarians without drawing the Empire's attention. Kama could draw in fighters, cranking up the madness in the city. Even with the presence of the Slave King, who kept everything in harmony, that balance was way too delicate. That's why Khalil offered Dushala a solution. Suwon wants to know what happened, and Khalil said the answer It's simple, it's information. The river cuts across the continent, and the city of Tatur sits right in the middle of it, with the river being the fastest way to cross this whole region. But because of its current, it's a brutal task. But Suwon can do it, and the Free City is the only place where nobles from the 3 kingdoms can get information. The city is a meeting point for all those people. Suwon realized the boy wanted to get into trade, which is the most freeing way to cross the continent. And that's exactly what he wants. Right now, Suwon is the only one who can pull all of this off. In the company of the remaining chiefs, this is the plan the boy wants to put into action, wanting a route that will connect several cities. And it will all start in that city. Tatur will be reborn as the center of everything, existing through the Empire. And that way, the invisible Empire will begin to exist. Dushala recognizes how bold this plan is, but they would become nothing but merchants, and the boy seems not to know what happens to those who sell information for money. Besides thinking the boy might be an Empire infiltrator, Khalil decided to show her the emblem he received from his father. Since those chiefs operate in the black market, they immediately recognize the meaning of that emblem. Khalil said he won't reveal the source of his information, but he guaranteed that to reach greatness, you have to take some risks. He wasn't planning to use his father's medallion like this. Dushala knows that emblem is only entrusted to people who carry out missions F, or the Empire in secret. She knew the boy wasn't conventional, but she wasn't expecting something like this. Now she believes Khalil's words more, but she made it clear they can't keep the city going just by selling black market information. They need resources to protect the city. Kama agrees with her. Successful merchants also have a wide variety of goods. You can't do business with nothing to offer. That's when Khalil brought up the Kanatra range, which lies between Tatur and the 3 kingdoms of Istria, a land completely devastated. Soon, a deposit of magic stones will be discovered in that place, the only one on the whole continent where octagonal stones will be mined. No one knows this information yet, but the Empire has already started to move. Khalil suggested they should get there first. Dushala knows that ore could bring prosperity to Tatur, but even devastated land belongs to someone. Her concern is rational. Khalil said those lands belong to a noble they know very well. Baron Beryl, from the Kingdom of Istan, was once considered a prodigy, but he ended up giving in to greed and his obsession with women. Khalil asked if she knows what drives someone who lives without honor or conviction. Money. And on top of that, the old man is also a mage, and he'll covet the mining rights. Khalil assured them this has nothing to do with the Empire. That information is his. With everything going on, Dushala is feeling more and more grateful for the boy's plans. Kama thought that meeting was unnecessary, and it's happening way too early. They know. Ed to get to the point already. Suwon called out the man with clogged arteries, because he should treat the master of that city with respect. Khalil would now reveal Tatur's secret, something none of them know. The city was founded before the Empire, 1,000 years ago. They say it was a dwarven fortress, with some special resources. Then he slid the blade of his gauntlet into a small gap in the wall, revealing to everyone a secret passage. Dushala didn't know this existed. Khalil revealed that magic can't find this passage, and it can only be opened with material made by dwarves or gnomes. He learned all of this from Mog, and he definitely needs to thank him when he wakes up. Inside that huge hall, the city's chiefs were stunned, because there lay the legacy of an era forgotten by time. They were blown away by the size of that ship. Khalil said it wasn't made by human hands. An unfair force in combat. It can't fly, but it can cross the river's current with ease. That's the masterpiece of a great blacksmith named Perval, the only one left on the continent, and that golem is the symbol of the Muir family. Dushala couldn't believe the city used to be a fortress. It could be useful in future battles, but what really intrigues her is how a boy knows all of this. Suan, still really impressed, asked if that boat can move. To answer that, Khalil told them to watch closely. With swings of his sword, he started cutting the chains. The ship immediately started rolling down the rails, and after countless years, it finally met the water. Suan was amazed by that. Dushala thought the boy was being reckless with those artifacts, but Khalil said he needs to use them. The Emperor was afraid of the power of these artifacts from the magic era, so he hid them. But Khalil is different from him, and he's going to use that power to the fullest. Still, that ship can't be used yet, so he's going to ask the dwarves of the black market to get it ready for use. Suan said he had something to ask. Admitting he was really impressed, he wanted to take a look inside the ship. Khalil really liked that enthusiasm. Since the captain sailed this vessel in his past life, and he remembers it vividly, Khalil can't wait to see the reaction of the people of the continent when they see that vessel, telling the people with him that all of this is only the beginning. After all that, Khalil believes he must have convinced those people. Since he managed to talk to Dushala, he hopes she took those words well, because he needs to win that man's favor through her. Baron Beryl, who's just a bald, depraved old man. That's why Khalil instructed Dushala to offer a generous price for the lands, even using magic stones, guaranteeing they'd provide magic stones to him after he signed the contract, something that would make any mage of the Empire give in to greed. When that works out, they can move on to planning the mine and how they're going to run it. While he was waiting, Aiden came up to him. Pretty happy, Aiden said he managed to find his younger sister and introduced the woman to the one who saved him at the port. Khalil knows Exa, C.T. Lee, who Zook is and what she's capable of doing. Able to manipulate the shape and joints of her body with a special transformation technique, he's never seen her true form. They helped Oliver a lot in his past life, taking out dissident nobles. It's possible they'll mess up Khalil's plans in the future, so he considered the possibility of finishing them off now, and he ended up letting that intention slip. The two of them ended up feeling their heads being disconnected. Khalil did that to scare them, thinking he still shouldn't do it. Aiden had been really scared by that feeling. Playing dumb and acting like he didn't get it, Khalil asked what happened to him, and Aiden said it was nothing. But he thought he really felt something deadly, like his life was about to be cut short. Knowing their potential, Khalil doesn't want to lose people that talented, so he decided he'd keep an eye on them, believing they can still be convinced. Talking to Aiden, he admitted he's a very skilled man, and that they could work together. And he already knows the wound Aiden had on his arm when they met was fake. Even so, he made it clear he likes working with capable people. They could both live in that place, but Khalil is going to demand something in return, telling them he's going somewhere really fun soon, even the mercenaries gang. Hearing that, the siblings were surprised. Khalil thought Aiden had gotten interested, but he made sure to say it was the opposite. The boy wants to start a small business, and he needs qualified people to protect it. Aiden, in silence, realized he was being pulled into something huge. Not able to believe the boy is going to hire those mercenaries to be his protection. Aiden has no idea how things are happening like this. He believes Zook will make a good report, but the bigger problem is figuring out who that boy is. That mercenary gang is a lot of trouble, and their leader is one of the 5 sword masters of the continent. Maybe he's the only one who can defeat Count McGovern, and now Aiden is trying to imagine what the boy wants. Khalil said those mercenaries are very well known, but their hideout stays secret. All there is are rumors, and he's going to show now why things are like that. After getting off their horses, they're heading toward a city, admitting it's expected they can't be found easily. Since the mercenaries only come to dry land for 14 days a year, a strong wind started blowing over them. For Khalil, it's been a long time since the last time, and he remembered that in this life, it's the first meeting. Above their heads, the flying ship is huge. Finally, the boy could get close to the mercenaries. On their way, there are some guards, who soon pointed their spears at those strangers, stopping them from going any further. They quickly asked who they were and what they came to do in that place. Khalil replied that they should be more interested in how he found this location, saying he went there to talk to Captain Gordon because he'd like to hire him. A blue-haired man stepped forward, saying that if the boy knows them that well, he knows how to hire them the right way. They only accept jobs that come through their branches. Khalil recognized Luke, the vice captain of those mercenaries. When Gordon succumbed to a serious illness, they became pawns of the Empire, a sign that before he died, someone was already building ties with the Emperor. Clearly, a traitor among the mercenaries, Khalil isn't going to let that happen. And he told that man he wants to speak with the captain, because he's doing business with him, not with his men. Luke realized that if the boy wants to talk to Gordon, he's willing to risk his life. He's a stubborn kid. Aiden whispered to Suan that this is getting way too dangerous, but he told him to trust the boy. Luke decided he would cooperate, snapping his fingers. A door opened on the vessel, giving access to the inside of the flying ship. Luke said he would take all of them to meet the captain, but he can't guarantee they'll come back alive. All of that just to try to intimidate our protagonist. Gordon said it's the first time in 30 years that someone has tried to hire them in person, and he wants to know who this boy is. The leader of that group of mercenaries has an intimidating presence. Khalil realized that up close, he looks even more like a monster. In the past, he ended up being a victim of a chronic illness, so this is the first time seeing him in person that made the boy realize that a duel between him and his father would be very close. So he started getting nervous in that meeting. Even though he's very talented, his body is only 12 years old. Just hearing that man's voice, Suan is scared, and he's showing every intention of attacking them. Khalil worked up the courage and said he wants to buy some of those mercenaries. Gordon warned him that his service is very, very expensive, and our protagonist guaranteed he'll buy them all and throw in a little extra. Those words left Gordon a bit confused. He even smiled at the boy, who suggested his men were cheap. The situation is getting more and more intense for our protagonist. Khalil then guaranteed something about that flying vessel. Gordon immediately paid attention. The boy pointed his finger at the sky, saying the ship could fly every day of the year. Paying attention to those words, Gordon found it interesting, asking if he works with the dwarves or the gnomes. Khalil assured him he works alone, which made the mercenary leader ask how he knows the engineering of that vessel, and the boy confirmed that the answer is in the magic stones that keep the vessel supported, and now, 5 of them are used to keep it flying. He admitted the idea is very good, but it's necessary for one of them to be in the center to balance everything. The best way is to combine all of them. Hearing that, Gordon got furious, because it's not possible to do that, since it would cause a huge explosion. Khalil said something like that would only happen with incomplete stones. With perfect stones, it would be different. Talking about octagonal magic stones, which when combined with others of the same type, have a much smoother effect. Gordon wants to know if the boy has that kind of magic stone that isn't easy to find. Khalil told him that if he didn't, he wouldn't have gone to the mercenaries, suggesting that Gordon consider doing business with him. Faced with the boy's confidence, the mercenary started smiling, saying he's interesting. Now that the fun is over, he has something to ask, wanting to know what he would do if Gordon used his strength to steal those stones. Khalil was immediately terrified, instantly ruining the underwear he was wearing. Gordon got up from his throne at great speed. Suan and Aiden couldn't see anything. Not even our protagonist was able to defend himself. Gordon said he should already know something very important. To do business with the captain, he has to be able to defend against his attack. But from the looks of it, the boy seems to have a lot of optimism about the future. Gordon hoped his attack would be blocked, and suggested that Khalil should become one of his men, offering him the position of vice captain, which made Luke very jealous. Still super confident, Khalil said he'd only accept the offer if he was going to be the captain, but the boy realized that if it weren't for the gauntlet he's wearing, he'd most likely be missing one of his arms, a sign that there are very powerful men in this land. Showing that his sword was dirty with blood, Khalil asked if they were looking down on him because of his age. Only now did the mercenary leader realize he'd been cut. He also never imagined something like that would happen. The boy is waiting for the outcome of that intense negotiation, believing that because he pulled off an effective attack, he can celebrate an alliance with the King of Brutality, something Olivern would never be able to do. Gordon is still pretty thoughtful, saying that was fun, and using a mysterious force, he completely regenerated the wound. Suan, who saw all that from Aiden's side, has the same question as his ally. That man doesn't seem human. Luke is impressed by the kid's skill, who blocked the attack and managed to strike the King of Brutality. A heavy silence took over the room, and the strong, hot-headed, impulsive, stereotypical guy started to smile. In the very next second, his mood flipped, and he got dead serious, saying he liked the boy. Khalil is relieved by those words, because all he lost there was a pair of underwear. The Lord of Brutality ordered his men to bring a contract to be signed. Using what little civility he had left, he sat at the table to sign the document. Showing he's also a literate man, he picked up the quill to sign his name, and the ink on that sheet shone intensely. The Pinnacle of Violence asked if the boy understands what that blank contract means. Khalil said the other party has to do what the other wants with no extra conditions. That kind of contract is very risky for him too. But the Herald of Aggression said that the boy managed to defend his attack, and him, so he's fit to form an alliance with him. The mercenaries realized that makes sense. Still, it's something very risky to do. Luke can't believe that brat formed an alliance with his captain, and since they're using a magic contract, he likes it even less. Finally, the man shaped by violence asked what the boy's name is. Now our protagonist introduced himself properly to him. Luke was explaining how hiring mercenaries works. Each soldier has an individual price based on their level. Taking Khalil to a room where the mercenaries he can hire are. Our boy grabbed the paper to take a look, and Luke felt ignored by him. Khalil had finally made his decision. He would take Mikhail, Tyrell, and Morris with him. Depending on how the job goes, maybe he'll hire more men. but he'll make that request through the organization's branches. Luke didn't expect Mikhail to be one of the men chosen, since he's a recent addition to that mercenary force. Seeing that, he thought Khalil, at the end of the day, was just a kid after all. Being captain, he called the 2 mercenaries who were in that room, as well as the last one, the infamous Mikhail. Khalil is excited about this meeting, because he knew this man in his past life. Mikhail reported for duty, giving a military salute. The vice captain informed them of the mission they received, and would give details to Morris, the highest ranked among them. Our protagonist went to introduce himself to Mikhail, saying it's really good to meet him. The mercenary, in turn, found it strange that Eld acted like a grown man. When they shook hands, Khalil noticed the mercenary's hands were very calloused, and asked how long he's been training. The guy said he's been doing it for 5 years, but he regretted it, believing his first mission would be for a noble's son. Khalil praised the guy's effort, and the mercenary said he was lucky to have found the captain. Luke suggested our protagonist pick a veteran, since that kid is just a rookie, and it's part of professional ethics that he recommend the best professionals. The brilliant solution Khalil found was to take the rookie, but pay only for the service of 2 people. And there was an extra condition too. He wouldn't allow the guy to carry a sword. Mikhail was completely terrified by that, because that way he wouldn't be able to fight. But our boy has intense memories of the battlefield, from when he met that man for the first time, leaning on the bodies of the defeated creatures. Praising his work, he asked if he was part of the mercenary forces. The guy confirmed it and told him his name. Khalil knows it's not easy to get into that group. And the man said that 8 years ago his city was attacked by monsters. The mercenaries were passing through. That's when he met Gordon. Khalil said not all swordmasters are skilled, and that wasn't what allowed Mikhail to defeat those monsters. Hearing those words, the guy got confused. At least that's what the dragon said about him. His talent isn't with the sword, and Mog is sure about that. Khalil said that if he hadn't met Gordon, his life would have been very different. But the mercenary is still alive and can fight really well, since he learned everything from his captain. Our protagonist realized the boy doesn't know his own potential, and now that he met him before everything happened, he can change the course of his life. He can change Mikhail's life, because he's supposed to become a mage. Our boy handed a scroll to Suan. It has to be delivered to Dushala, and he asked if the boy is going to be okay. Khalil is very confident, because everyone can protect themselves, and they need the captain to get into the city of Tatur. It's important to take the rest of the soldiers to Dushala, and in that letter there are also instructions for Suan. Khalil is counting on their cooperation, believing they'll do even better than expected. Until they buy the land and manage to extract the minerals, the process will take a year before the start of the war against the Oracle. Khalil can completely change the continent's fate, and now he needs to focus on himself. It's time for him to leave with his mercenaries, and there's a place he needs to take Mikhail. The guy asked where they're going, and our protagonist said they're going to the magical city of Azor, a planned-out place and really beautiful. As soon as they arrived in the city, Mikhail was amazed by how beautiful the place is. It feels like he's in a completely different world. Khalil noticed the guy is really excited, and he revealed it's the first time he's going to a city this big. And that's not just any city, because it has the Ivory Tower and the Council of the Immortals. The 7 elders who spread magic across the continent founded this city, and the biggest tower was built by Alan Javius. Long before Aesir, Mikhail is impressed by the history, thinking there were already talented people back then. Our protagonist also never went to that city, because he spent a lot of time in the arena in his past life. When they go in, they'll split up. Aiden will be responsible for finding a place to stay, and Mikhail wants to know what he's going to do. Our protagonist has a task for him. He has to sign up for the city's competition in Khalil's name. The mercenary asked if his boss was going to take part in the magic competition, and our boy said the mercenary is going to participate with him too. This competition is similar to the arena of Tatur. Mages from all over the continent take part in it, where they test their great skills. Holding a letter in his hand, he told the mercenary that was proof of his identity, making it clear it was really expensive. Aiden recognized it as Baron Barrel's seal, realizing Khalil is very well prepared. The mercenary is confused, but our boy tried to calm him down, saying nobody will pay attention to him, and that it's just an invitation from an old mage. Even so, this document will get some discounts. What he needs to do now is sign up for the competition, and in an hour, they'll all meet at the square. The mercenary agreed to the order. Now our protagonist can go to his objective. Dushala told him, the Great Library is the best place to look for that, because there's a lot of knowledge stored there. Khalil doesn't want to join any magical organization, and he asked her what he can do in his current situation. She said he could take control of the council, since he's talented, and Khalil had already considered that idea, but he'll do it soon. Shocked, the woman doesn't know if he was joking or if he was telling the truth. One way to get the books he wants would be by winning the magic competition. Basically impossible, because the final duel is always between the Council of Dawn and the Council of the Immortals. And that's not all. In that city, there are also people like them, and there are those who can steal those books in a slick way. If he's lucky, Khalil might find a fourth-class book. The woman knows some people who can do that for him. Interested, Khalil wants to know who he needs to talk to when they get to Azor. The first one is Bargo Sira. As soon as he heard that name, the boy was surprised. Dushala asked if he knows him, and our protagonist had to work hard to pretend he doesn't. Continuing her explanation, she said this man is the leader of a guild, Ulka. And what scared our boy is that this man is connected to Wooden Cloud. All he wanted was to find a few books. He wasn't expecting to get connected to that organization, which is a lucky break. Khalil is waiting on a few things. After Arden, he couldn't get much information out of the organization, and that wizard didn't know many names either. But what he just found out is a crazy coincidence. Baker used to be a member of the Ulka Guild before working for the Wooden Cloud, and there must be 2 infiltrators in that guild. It could be that Ulka is one of this organization's bases. Wanting to gather more information, Khalil started his investigation. That magic city has night lighting, which makes the place really safe. But like any other city, there's darkness there too, a hidden outskirts in that glamorous city. Khalil told the people lying on the ground to get out of his way, because he needed to go through that door. Right after he said that, some very suspicious people showed up. They all started surrounding the boy. Khalil said they might have a problem with that, and one of the thugs revealed he was armed. The boy realized those weren't normal beggars, and said he didn't want to waste time there. Immediately, one of them tried to attack him, but his strike got brutally shut down, and that hand probably isn't going to move normally after that. The man who hadn't said a single word until now started screaming in pain, then got beaten down brutally right after. Khalil used it as practice, throwing the thug's body away, and he told those thugs that the next one who wants to be sipping soup through a straw for the rest of his life should step forward. They all got scared. Khalil realized that, no matter what, he always has to use violence with people like that. Inside that house, there was a man writing something. The door was suddenly opened, and our boy walked in. The man asked if he was a customer, said he was busy with the competitor, Ion, and wouldn't take any new orders. Khalil said the guys at the entrance looked strong, and now he understood they were actually hired people. He said Dushala recommended he come there, and that he wanted to meet Bargo Sira. Showing a letter of recommendation, he said he wanted to buy some magic books. Fulfilling the boy's request, the man put a few books in front of him, making it clear he normally wouldn't do that, but since Dushala recommended him, he was doing it out of respect for her. Khalil quickly looked through the books, realizing they weren't much different from the ones he'd read in the library back in his father's territory. Since there was nothing above second class, he made it clear he wasn't happy. And the man said getting that kind of material isn't easy unless you belong to the Magic Council. Advanced books can be found on the black market, but it's almost impossible. Khalil said that's exactly why he came. Dushala guaranteed he'd have access to 4th class books or higher, and the old man recommended he join the guild. And trying to be even more convincing, Khalil said the old man didn't seem like he wanted to cooperate. Showing the recommendation, he said he didn't need to keep explaining himself. That left the old man deeply terrified. That recommendation came from Beryl himself, and the boy told him to deliver it to Bargo Sira because he wanted to talk to him in person. And he said the old man was treating that customer pretty rudely. After that, he apologized. But since the boy had stabbed the letter into the tea, Abel, he couldn't pull it out. And, shaking with fear, he asked the boy to help him. Finally, Khalil was being taken further inside, and the man who received him apologized for the old man's rudeness. A bearded, very overweight man introduced himself. This was Bargo Sira. Khalil, meeting this man in person, had to hide his anger. The chubby guy knows about the recommendation letter he has, and the boy wants interesting magic books. Stuff beyond second class. Bargo said the Baron who recommended the boy doesn't have a good reputation, but the letter still has value. Getting straight to the point, Khalil wants to know what they can offer him. Bargo made it clear that if he passes the qualification, he can offer the books he wants. Khalil wasn't expecting something like that to happen, and a crystal orb was revealed. Through it, a verification process is done. That device got the boy excited, impressed that something like that could be in that shop. Sometimes mages hand out recommendation letters way too easily, that's why they need to do this screening. It can measure someone's magic level without any danger. The boy should put his hand on it and release his magic. Depending on the result, he'd be approved or not. Even though this was his first time with the device, Khalil had heard about it in his past life. It can measure a person's magic, so he got excited about the result he might be able to reach. Asking the man if there were 4th class books or higher, Bargo thought the kid might be an intermediate mage, and said that 5th class books are really expensive. Khalil got excited by the idea that money could get him even more interesting books, and the overweight man assured him that with his influence, there's nothing he can't sell, but he knows talented mages only reach the 5th level after many years. That brat must just be some cocky kid. Khalil insisted that Bargo should prepare the books right away, and he started channeling his magic into that device. The amount of power that filled the room was terrifying. Khalil was showing him just how huge his potential was, which ended up completely destroying that device. creating a powerful shockwave, flinging Bargo's hat away, revealing he was hiding some extreme baldness. Khalil regrets breaking that artifact. Bargo is terrified by the result, realizing the kid has surpassed the 4th level, and the device couldn't even measure his potential. Khalil immediately asked to see the books he had stored in that shop. Bargo obediently said he'd do that, but he was thinking he needs to get that kid before someone else does. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for him. Later, he also offered for him to join his guild, since he could provide him with lots of materials, guaranteeing that in that city, nobody compares to them. But our kid doesn't remember them from his past life. Even so, he realized he'd gained something, and that man must have connections with Baker. Khalil asked what kind of magic books he had to show, and Bargo is determined to show the best he's got. Revealing a hidden compartment, he said the kid could choose whatever he wanted. But our protagonist wasn't impressed, because everything he saw there was 4th class. The first book he picked up taught wind blades, something from the 3rd level, but a deadly technique that was banned by the council. Noticing there was also some very rare material in there, Khalil said maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to team up with that man, who was getting more and more excited about the kid, and he'd try to convince him no matter what. Khalil said he has one last favor to ask. With several books in hand, Khalil handed them all to someone, that talented mercenary he had recruited, because he knew his attribute is wind, but the mercenary had never told him that. Without saying how he found that out, Khalil asked about the competition, and Mikhail told him it'll happen at the Council of Immortals in a week. Since it's the mercenary's first time, he'll be in the beginner category, and 3rd level spells will be enough he has to learn them in that time. But for the mercenary, 1 week is an insane deadline, saying that this is completely insane, because normally you'd train for months. Khalil said he'll get help from Aiden, who's far from one of the best, but could be useful. Our kid knows this infiltrator won't be able to get past the 3rd level, but he's really good with a sword, and could become a master with it. Khalil asked Aiden to teach the basics, the rest would be on the mercenary. Mikhail said he can use 1st level techniques, but when he goes to the 2nd, he runs out of mana fast, since he has Thra, EE cores. If that's happening, it's because he still hasn't mastered his class. But that doesn't stop him from learning a higher class spell, and he asked Aiden what he thought. He said that would be impossible, but started wondering how Khalil knows so much about him. The kid knows he's from the East, and that in the kingdom, in that region, they teach people to manipulate magic. Aiden, a bit more open-minded, said there's a chance it could work. Our kid asked if he's capable of it. He remembered magical transformation, a skill that temporarily condenses attributes to move up a class, and it takes years of training to refine it. Aiden knows that method, but doesn't believe the mercenary kid can learn it. Khalil doesn't care about that, and told him to teach it immediately. They went to train in the forest, and the mercenary was impressed with what he'd learned. Even our protagonist was, because that mercenary is a genius. Aiden was also completely stunned in just 3 days. The mercenary reached the 3rd level. Khalil praised the teachings of the great Professor Aiden. Since Khalil is also going to compete, the mercenary asked if he's also in the beginner level, and showing them a document, he claimed he's already an expert. Aiden knows that for that, he has to be at least 4th level, realizing there's a small chance the kid is a swordmaster. There has never been a monster like that child in the continent's history. Khalil said they shouldn't be surprised, since he still hasn't perfected all of his cores. Stepping away, he said he'd leave, the 2 of them training, because he has things to take care of now. Aiden now has more doubts than answers. Everything about that kid seems completely wrong, and our protagonist wants to squeeze the maximum potential out of that mercenary. After walking a bit through the forest, he believes he's gone far enough. He managed to fool Bargo using the dragon's heart, but he's only built 2 cores, and he can only use basic spells. But he needs to take part in the master competition, and for that, he needs to get approved in the expert category. Mog had told him something about that in the past. The entity that introduced magic to humans was a dragon. But that's not common among them. Those creatures don't care about the continent's affairs, because human magic is nowhere near being a threat. And the place they're in right now has dragon magic, the ruins of the city of Azor. Mog said even the dragons forgot about that. Khalil asked if the 7 elders were disciples of the dragons. Mog assured him they weren't, and that most likely, the 7 elders were actually dragons. Khalil can now use basic fire spells, but old Azir's technique was completely different. The class shows the power level, and something interesting would happen if he put 5th level power into a basic spell. Khalil is trying to put that into practice now, and his body was flooded with intense pain. That familiar agony started to consume him, and the bracelet on his arm was glowing intensely. Khalil is trying to control this situation. Every time he tries to use Magic Bay on his cores, the bracelet activates, making the magic vanish. That's a problem he needs to solve soon. Trying once again to manipulate other attributes, he chose the ones that are antagonistic, to push them to the limit. That way he managed to stabilize his technique. There's no one else on the continent who can use 2 attributes at the same time, and he can only use them all because he consumed a dragon's heart. and if the magic in that book belongs to a dragon, he's the only person who can learn it. That only motivated the boy even more, since he wants to learn that technique at any cost. Walking through the forest, a group of mages is heading to the place where some lightning had struck. Soon they start arguing, because they can't agree on the level of that magic. One of them said they don't have time to argue, there's something important that needs to be done. They need to report to their superiors who caused all that damage. In the city, there are rumors that a huge fire happened in the forest, and there were lots of lightning strikes too. The Council of Mages said it was a natural disaster, but the real one responsible is our boy. Like always, the mages avoid information they can't explain, calling it a disaster. Bargo asked if the boy was feeling ready, handing him his guild's emblem, because he'd like him to wear it during the battle. Khalil is impressed by the bald guy's snobby attitude. Saying he'd wear it, he asked how much he'd bet on the tournament, saying there shouldn't be secrets between them. That's why. He'd like to know how much money was bet on his victory. Bargo started smiling, impressed. Realizing he couldn't fool that kid, he said he bet 100 gold coins. Khalil said the amount was way too small, and the bald guy got annoyed by that comment. Khalil, on the other hand, thinks he should put down 500 gold coins. Bargo felt uncomfortable with that idea, because the brat is way too cocky. And in the competition there are really talented people, so 100 gold coins is the ideal amount to bet, because it's something he's willing to lose. Khalil said he's missing the chance to make a lot of money, which is, at the very least, a shame. Bargo started to feel provoked by the boy, saying he's very confident and should deliver the win with all that determination. But our boy doesn't want to waste much time in this city. He just wants to achieve his goal, and that competition is a small obstacle. Soon the war will come down on them, and Olivern will try to unify everything, fighting against the mages. Khalil is one of the few who came back alive, and 4th level mages are useless to him. In front of him, they're just ants. The two of them were interrupted by a noise outside, so they went to see what it was. The broadcast of a duel is happening in the square. Looks like it had finally started. Khalil recommended the bald guy bet on a specific candidate, because something interesting is going to happen. That person is the mercenary Mikhail. Our boy said they should head to the arena right away. Bargo didn't like the idea of betting on some rookie he does. I don't even know, but he's interested in the kid's overconfidence. Once in the arena, Khalil noticed the mercenaries group is way too relaxed. Some mages say the competition has seen better days. The place is packed with bootlickers. Khalil noticed the mages are still acting all high and mighty, which makes him want to find that man as soon as possible. The expert level tournament is about to start. Khalil is making his entrance into the arena. In front of him is some extra who got rejected from a Harry Potter movie. The kid realized this place is pathetic, and it's no different from Tatur. Everyone wants to act noble, but the people in this city are all the same. They see those fighters as nothing but entertainment, and a source of income. There are also those who want to manipulate connections. It's like the winner's already been decided, but Khalil is there to mess up everyone's plans. The Harry Potter extra thinks he's going to beat the kid easily. Khalil is impressed with his opponent, who hasn't even moved yet, but already started chanting spells. He's never seen anything so ridiculous in a duel, and he rushed up to him. As soon as he got close enough, the extra got scared to death, because he started getting beaten down brutally, and his leg got badly injured. Khalil was going to end it all, using a fire spell, but the extra tried to beg him to show mercy, so the kid drew a mark right in the middle of his bald spot, saying enemies won't wait for him to finish his little performance in the middle of a battlefield. The crowd didn't lick that display, saying it was blasphemy against tradition. To Khalil, magic on the battlefield has to be used efficiently, something he learned from Sarika Lauren. That woman said mages shouldn't stay in the back. That's a stupid way to think. She was willing to change the way the continent built its military doctrine. Khalil thought that idea was interesting, because she knew how to use a sword, on top of having impressive magical techniques, and asked what he should call her. Standing up in front of him, the woman with huge assets said she should be called Supreme, a title he could never reach in his old life. Now, he can reach it. The one who was really happy with this result was the old bald guy. He said the kid showed how it's done, and trying to hug him, he almost fell to the ground. Pulling himself together again, he asked the kid to go with him to the guild, because he was going to introduce him to some interesting people. Khalil wanted to talk to his mercenary first, but since he's with Aiden, it should be fine, because it's time to keep investigating Ulkas. When they walk into that place, our boy got stared at by a bunch of people. Bargo started picking a fight with those idle men, and said they should get back to work already. The more he kept saying that, the more pissed off they got. All that disapproval is because Khalil isn't a real mage. Someone said Bargo is making a big deal out of it just because the kid won one match. The drunk guy told Khalil to be careful, because the old man would use him and then toss him aside, like he was nothing. Bargo told Thompson to shut up, and if he was going to keep it up, he should give the staff back and leave. Since he was really drunk, he kept scolding Khalil, saying the staff wasn't made for hitting people, but our protagonist saw marks on his skin, and he knows what it could have been. Thompson bumped into the kid on purpose, saying he still isn't a real mage, and that this way, maybe he never will be. Bargo said the drunk is just a loser, who can barely even walk anymore, and uses his staff like a crutch. Khalil seemed interested in him. Bargo said Thompson is level 5, the highest in the whole guild. He spent a lot of money on him, but the guy ended up becoming an alcoholic. Suggesting he forget about that, Bargo wanted to talk business, but our protagonist said they could talk some other time. Since he knows where he's staying, he said they could meet that night. Bargo got really furious at being ignored. Thompson walks through the city streets, suffering badly from his hangover. Khalil managed to catch up to him, and like he suspected, that man is suffering from magical poisoning. He definitely has a mind with huge potential, but his body is too weak to handle all that power, and it's being eaten away by the magic. That's what he heard from someone he knows, and to endure it, he'd need to strengthen the body too. Thompson said he doesn't know anything, and he's just a bratty kid, but Khalil assured him that at this rate he's going to end up dying. It's surprising he's lasted this long, and he also said he cow. LD help him. The drunk refuses to believe those words, but our boy started using magic, and he surprised that man by touching his chest. Right away, he felt the magical power gathering. At first, it was a painful process, but Thompson realized his symptoms were gone. Khalil asked how he was feeling. The spots on his skin disappeared. He's also feeling better, but he doesn't know what happened. Khalil assured him that was only a temporary fix, and that healing technique would be figured out soon. The boy said he could heal him, but he wants a favor in return. Later that day, he finally returned to the inn. Finding his companions who were already waiting for him, the mercenary is really excited, because he didn't think he'd be able to make it through that competition. He even watched our boys fight, and he'd like to become as strong as him. Khalil said they could even face each other in the expert class, but for now, the mercenary's priority is beating the beginners. He's different from traditional mages, because he has real combat experience. More and more fired up, the mercenary promised he would obey his master and never lose to mages who only know how to chant spells. Khalil said he needs to sharpen his techniques now, and that one day he'd introduce him to a proper mentor. The boy plans to enter Mog's lair, but with his current strength it would be very dangerous. And until he meets his new mentor, Mikhail needs to keep training hard. Our protagonist also has a message for Aiden, because he needs him to do something. He said the mage will look for him in that place, and Aiden only needs to do one thing: accept what he came to deliver. Aiden realized that trying to hide his identity is getting complicated. He even taught a secret technique to the mercenary. He could be punished with death. At night in the middle of the square, Khalil is waiting for someone. He didn't expect this man to show up. The old man in front of him is Tapio from the Dawn Council, and he came with a proposal. He wanted the boy to drop out of the competition. Since he's tied to a guild that has no ties to the Magic Council, he doesn't understand how big this competition is, but he's willing to make it worth his while. Khalil said the council is rotten, and that the competition must be rigged. Even so, he was interested in that compensation prize. The old man promised he'd give him the champion's prize, along with a spell book of equal value. Khalil realized that isn't a bad offer, but his ambitions are bigger, telling the old man he doesn't plan to do that. The next day, the competitors were shocked by the announcement of the final duel. All the other competitors dropped out of the competition. A mage is trying to understand how things ended up like this, while our boy realized he couldn't break that valuable staff. The night before, he defeated the old man like it was nothing. A woman with huge assets and an insanely curvy figure called the finalists to enter the arena. Khalil wished his opponent good luck, but the truth is, the guy has no hope of winning. The final duel will be between Kal, Il, and Zakin from the Dawn Council. People expect the real mage won't be defeated by this cocky brat. Khalil knows those people are lucky, because he didn't reveal his true identity. If they knew they lost to a barbarian, they'd have irreversible mental breakdowns. As soon as the match started, Zakin used his techniques. Because he does it so fast, Khalil realized he's talented during the war. Few mages could do that. If the continent hadn't been united back then, humanity would have been wiped out. The boy knows he can't use too many techniques, but low-tier ones should be enough. His opponent is already really exhausted, but he managed to cast a 4th-level ice spell. The traditional mage mindset believes powerful spells are the only ones fit for combat. Zakin thinks he's going to end the fight like this, but our protagonist managed to conjure grease, and he put it under his opponent's feet, who immediately lost his balance and fell to the ground. Nobody expected something like that, because this spell is used to move heavy objects. The crowd says this duel is turning into a joke, but in the Oracle War, this spell was used a lot, because what really matters is the synergy between spells. Khalil followed up with a fire spell, causing a huge blaze in that arena. His opponent started crying for help, and Khalil told him to calm down, because he could easily defend himself using wind, and a 4th-level mage could do that even without a staff. But that opponent was way too scared. Khalil used a magic shield, which was able to wrap up all 3 fire he had created, making the flames disappear from the arena. The elders who witnessed that never imagined something so brilliant could actually be put into practice. Zakin is getting completely crushed, but that had hurt his pride, and he said he wouldn't accept something like that, saying that Khalil's behavior offends the honor of mages. Khalil said he's got a lot of nerve to say that, and started walking up to him while drawing his sword, throwing a quick strike right in front of his opponent. He'd driven the sword into the ground, and staring the boy in the eyes, said he's not a mage, and he wanted to know what he thinks matters more, the honor he talks about so much, or his life. Because everything that can have any kind of value ends with death, Khalil's victory was declared. Bargo is insanely happy with this result, because he finally got a meaningful win in the competition. He believes he should start making moves now, offering a contract to our protagonist. That's a slavery contract, and it ends with the death of whoever breaks it. Not even mercenaries would do something that cruel. All of this is driven by the bald guy's greed. Lying to the kid, he said that by signing the contract, he'd have to work for 5 years, and in return he'd be given quality materials. Khalil realized those words were only meant to trick him, and said he'd go ahead and sign the contract, which got the bald guy really excited, thinking he'd fooled that kid. But the boy said he'd like to add something. Looking pretty excited, Bargo asked what he wanted. He wants to add the following clause. He'd only be required to obey the contract as long as the Ulka's Guild exists, which made the bald guy really happy, agreeing to that addition, thinking he'd managed to buy the boy's soul. But the truth is, that addition is perfect, because when Khalil reaches what he wants, that guild will disappear, since they'll be destroyed from the inside out. Even with the unification of the continent, the wooden cloud still exists. The attack on McGovern's children was a matter of minutes. Disguised as a religion, they were able to control the empire from the shadows. They used the rise of monsters as an excuse to increase their power. Khalil had to fight the creatures and those religious fanatics. Too many were deceived and sacrificed their lives. A blonde man entered the place where our boy was, and asked if the mage Khalil was there, because the lord of that city was looking for him, and these men came to escort him to his destination. Khalil agreed to their request. Looks like Facio started moving too. He's the one who runs the city. And this man finally met the winner of the tournament. He said it's really good to meet him. Khalil returned the politeness, and now that he uses magic, he can sense things really well. Facio is such a powerful man that it makes his skin crawl, even though he's destined to be cursed, because he'll team up with criminals, attacking innocents. He knows our boy wants to compete in the master category, and Khalil confirms it, impressed by his confidence, even though the competition doesn't have that many participants. This old man must be crazy too. Fazio assumes the boy has his eye on the grand prize, but he guaranteed he won't be able to get there alone. To receive the prize left by the 7 elders, he needs to prove he's worthy. Khalil asked him how he could do that, knowing there's no one who can compete with him in that category. Knowing that, Fazio has a suggestion for the boy, similar to the competition. That city protects the elders' legacy, and the 3 magic books were discovered in the tomb of those who started magic. But recent research discovered a new place. That information left our boy really surprised. Facio would like him to investigate that region, getting priority on whatever he finds. Khalil knows this is Grey Dean, a place where the assembly used to meet, and that place has already been discovered. They also found several artifacts left by the elders there, especially a sword that can be used without dragon magic, the Freezing Claw. Now he knows why the old man is asking him to do this, because he doesn't want to lose good mages in an unknown place. It's also the perfect place for an ambush. Khalil realized the situation is going to end up favoring him, so he accepted that proposal, since he's the only one who can learn the magic left by the elders, and he's going to take all the treasures of this city. Aiden heard the news, and Khalil asked if he managed to carry out the favor he'd asked for. But nobody has shown up at the inn so far, and curious, he asked what it was about. But Khalil didn't and swore. Looks like Thompson still hasn't managed to do what he asked, gather evidence against Bargo, but he'll definitely keep that promise. His life depends on it. Mikhail also needs to break through the 3rd level, and Aiden believes that day is getting close. Khalil wants it to happen within the next 2 days, which ended up leaving Aiden completely terrified because that's an impossible deadline. The boy promised that if they manage it, he'd give Aiden what he wants. The chance to get in touch with Olivern, our protagonist thought. Azor is protected by a huge magical shield, which can make communication difficult. That's why Aiden was also brought to this city, because it's already time to report information to the prince. Soon, an event that will change the course of history is going to happen. A battle between the princes for the throne. Now Khalil is exploring that place without being discovered. It's been a long time since the last time he smelled that scent. Mog found the Frostclaw sword while exploring that region. Khalil started to feel a strange sensation, the same one he felt when the tower appeared during the Oracle War. It was like he was inside that hellish tower, but the pressure doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. Very carefully, the boy found a barrier, and immediately he had to stay alert. Using his hands, he managed to grab onto something, but he tried to calm down, because that was just an illusion. Then he slammed it against the dungeon floor, Realizing he'd been hurt, he didn't expect something like that to happen so fast. Quickly, he started tending to the wound. Somehow, someone tried to poison him, but he managed to keep anything worse from happening. Now he can make out, in the middle of the shadows, a huge creature, something that lives in the darkness, something sinister, forgotten by God. Khalil doesn't know what that monster is doing there, because he only ran into this monster after the oracle. There must be something about that place he doesn't know, and this one is much smaller than the ones he'd faced before. The adults are dozens of meters tall. Khalil needs to get ready for the fight, realizing the creature is much faster than he was expecting. With difficulty, he managed to block the first blows. Still, that monster is a terrifying danger, almost hitting his neck. Fighting a creature like that without preparation can be dangerous. Khalil managed to wound it. He'd need demonic magic and a potion for the poison, but he doesn't have any of that right now. All he can do is be careful, because if he isn't, he'll be swallowed by an ocean of poison. No matter what happens, he needs to win. Even wounded, the dreadful creature keeps threatening him. Khalil can't blink during this battle. Even with its cursed constitution, the monster is still a living creature, and it can be destroyed. But if its core is damaged too quickly, the poison will spread through the air. He needs to strike at the right moment. Khalil learned how to do that after losing thousands of soldiers first. He needs to protect himself with his blood magic. But the bracelet was making tend. Had harder. Khalil wondered what could have gone wrong again, and now the creature lunged at him in a fury. The boy realized things weren't going to be easy. Having to block the attacks from that beast, that made the creature's core swell. Khalil needs to attack when that happens. On the third expansion, the core changes shape, becoming fragile to attacks. But his plans were interrupted, because his body started getting coated in a mysterious magic. That's when he realized something had worked. His blood magic had awakened, and once again the creature saw an opportunity in that, charging at its enemy, determined to defeat him. Khalil noticed the core expanded a second time. He needs to wait for the next opportunity, driving the creature back with dangerous strikes. His plans are working, but the monster backed off more than he planned. It's like the creature was also trying to set something up. Disappearing into the shadows, Khalil realized he needs to deal with the fog problem. He decided to use a strike with his aura wind magic. Maybe that would be enough to push back the shadows in that place. The force of the blow ended up hitting the creature too, and since its core was exposed, it ended up getting hit. Khalil was really happy with how his plan turned out, because that enemy had been wiped out safely. The darkness that had taken over that place also disappeared. That's only the beginning. Khalil is worried about what might show up. 2 days might not be enough. While he was thinking, mysterious words started glowy, nung on the blade of his sword, and the boy has no idea what that is. Because he doesn't know the language those symbols are in, he thought it might be a forgotten language. Since it's an artifact that came from his family, it should have gone to his older brother, and in his past life he never used the sword the way he should have. Now that the words disappeared, he has the feeling the sword got heavier, and since he'd never really thought about it, he realized the sword has its secrets. Eager to figure that out soon, he sheathed his sword, since he needs to deal with what's right in front of him. Still exploring that place, he didn't find anything, but a spirit showed up there, saying it was all very real. The ghost wants to know if the brat can hear him. Khalil said the loudmouth talks way too loud, and the place is really creepy. This is already getting annoying. It's even understandable that so many people's souls are there, since it's the last place the elders were. Khalil asked who that ghost was, and if he's looking for revenge against the elders, he's too late, because they're all already dead. The ghost said he'd never met such a cheeky kid in his life, and Khalil made it very clear that the ghost isn't alive right now. Curious, the ghost asked if he wasn't scared, and the boy said he's been through so much it's even hard to explain, but he had a question to ask. He wants to know where the Frost Claw sword is, because he heard from Mog that it could be found there. Those words made the ghost get scared, because he wanted to know how the boy had that information, or how he knew Mog. Khalil realized the ghost doesn't seem to like his dragon friend, and assured him that right now, he doesn't know about the Grey Dean, because he's asleep, and will only find out in the future. But that left the ghost even more intrigued. Khalil said that eventually dragons would find out about it, but it ended up being discovered by the mages of Azor. The ghost said the sword is an exceptional weapon, but the boy realized an even greater treasure might be hidden there. And since they were already talking, Khalil wants to know this ghost's identity. Since that's a reasonable request, the ghost agreed to it, saying his name is Alan Javius. As soon as he learned his identity, Khalil almost fell backward onto the ground. Because he was the best among the 7 elders, the only mage as famous on the continent as Aesir himself, known even among the barbarians, Khalil started thinking about whether this is really true. If the ghost really is who he says he is, he's an impressive person. Mog didn't tell our boy any detail as important as that. The ghost asked if the boy is surprised by his presence and forgot how to talk. Besides that, he asked if he doesn't doubt that claim. Khalil doesn't think he's being tricked, but he only went to that place because it was built by the great elders. and taking down a fake ghost would be way too easy, even if he hasn't learned the magic the elders left behind. But the ghost found that statement strange, because he doesn't remember leaving anything behind, though maybe the name changed over the course of history. Either way, there are now 3 enchantments available to humanity. So the ghost started thinking about what it could be, coming to the conclusion that it wasn't made by the assembly. As soon as he found that out, our boy got scared, and the ghost liked his curiosity, and suggested they make a deal now, guaranteeing he would reveal to the boy the truths he wants to know. Someone who's discovered the truth of the world. Messing with an innocent child will be an easy task. Khalil made it very clear to the ghost that he's met people like that in his life, and in the end, they all turned out to be huge fools. The ghost felt the intimidation in the boy's look, like he was really determined. Khalil simply turned his back on him and told the ghost to disappear, because he lost interest in him. It makes no sense to make deals with dead people. The ghost is now impressed by this excess of confidence. But before walking away, Khalil had one last thing to say. He could listen to the ghost's offer if he revealed where the Frostclaw sword is. Hearing that, the spirit realized it would be hard to negotiate with the boy. He doesn't know how long he'd been asleep in that place, and he's surprised that 10,000 years have passed. To our boy who overcame the tower, the ghost complaint is a huge piece of stupidity. Khalil wants to know why he's relying so much on a child, coming to the conclusion that he's definitely trapped in that place. Even if he doesn't know the real reason, some huge upheaval must have happened within the assembly, and he must have been the only survivor. Even so, he wasn't able to escape that prison, though it could be the complete opposite. And in fact, he was imprisoned in that place, and the hero Gustav might have been responsible for it. Hearing that person's name, the ghost got deeply irritated, saying the boy shouldn't be ridiculous, releasing an intense killing intent. Gustav to him is just the leader of the traitors. Giving him the title of hero means the future is full of lies. Khalil made it very clear that it's not up to the loser to say what the story is, and some of his descendants call him a traitor. Alan the traitor. Besides, if the Han family hadn't taken control of Azor, there would be only 6 towers and not 7. The ghost asked if Celine Han's descendants are still alive, and the boy confirmed that one of them is the current lord of the city, leaving the ghost surprised. Celine was the only woman among the 7 elders. Khalil realized his ethereal friend was impressed. Maybe something happened between him and her, but the boy isn't interested in that. Meanwhile, Alan is visibly shaken, and the boy asked if they were lovers, and the ghost said that's a huge load of nonsense. Khalil realized his straight friend is really grumpy. Alan said he doesn't know anything, and he doesn't know what Gustav, Mog, and Celine did. The boy assumed Celine built Alan's tower as a way to cover up her mistakes. The ghost said there's no need to rush to explain things, and Khalil realized he's the desperate one in this conversation. Since he can't leave that prison, Alan said he'd tell the boy where the sword he's looking for is. But Khalil doesn't want just that, which made the ghost extremely outraged. Our protagonist wants to renegotiate the terms of this deal, when really he wants to know if there are more treasures in that place. He asked if the ghost hid anything there. Alan recommended the boy give that up, but he can't use Gustav's magic. Khalil immediately started using his power, showing the ghost he might be very different from what he imagines. Seeing that magical power, he started to get scared, because it looked like it came from a dragon hunter. Khalil realized it went just like he expected. The ghost quickly understood his power. Alan is getting more and more fascinated by this situation, because he's being manipulated by a child. Deciding to cooperate with him, leading him to a big door, Khalil asked what he should do now, and his ethereal friend said he needs to push that big stone. Following that order, the boy put his hand on the door, carefully opening it, getting access to another room. His eyes land on something impressive. There was a blue fire burning on top of an altar. The first question he asks the ghost is where the sword he's looking for is, and pointing to a marble sphere, Alan said Khalil should put it in there, into that brazier. Following the order, Khalil was a little suspicious about the situation, thinking he might be walking into a trap, but he decided to do it anyway. When the marble sphere came into contact with those flames, the fire grew even more. Alan said the next step is to remove the charcoal that absorbed that heat, just like distilled water, and Khalil asked if it was really water. And the ghost confirmed that using a special method, he can produce high-quality water, much more efficient than distilled water. He realized the water's attributes stayed unchanged even after all these years, which explains the boy's surprise. Khalil knows finding water of that quality is really hard. Olivern used to be completely obsessed with finding something like that, since it was very useful against the Oracle's monsters. And that marble stone was as big as his hand. It's hard to believe it's 10 times more effective than regular water. This is an item that could completely change the future. Khalil asked where the ghost got that, but he didn't understand the question. It sounded like the boy was accusing him of something. So Khalil rephrased it. He wanted to know where he could find more of that water. The ghost said that isn't something you can find in nature, because it isn't a magic ore. Hearing that explanation, Khalil got more and more confused. Alan said that kind of water is formed by the solidification of a moss that grows at the spring's source, something he used to take care of. It doesn't matter if the spring had dried up, as long as it exists, it can always flow again. Khalil realized that in his past life, it wasn't possible to get that ore, because Alan was no longer alive. Now they need to keep going with the steps in that secret room, putting 3, each charcoal that absorbed the water into the hole under the table. Khalil keeps following all the orders, and now the fire got even more intense, revealing a blade that had been hidden. Finally, our protagonist managed to get a powerful sword. Khalil thought that if Mog met that spirit, that explains why he knew how to find the sword. Now it remains to be seen why he didn't tell him the whole story. Looks like he was trying to hide something. Alan took our protagonist to the artifact he was looking for, then asked if he was ready to hear his proposal. Because he wanted to be taken to the Platinum Dragon, and if the boy could do that for him, he promised he would help her. Khalil said those were the best words the ghost had ever said in his entire life. Back in the city center, our boy is talking to the boss of the place, who didn't seem to be doing so well. The bald guy said he couldn't sleep well last night. Khalil is thinking the bald guy didn't expect him to come back in just 2 days. Anyway, he warned that the city's defenses need to improve. On his way back, he ran into some thieves, and they had insignias with a specific pattern, so it'd be good to investigate them. The city's mayor doesn't believe something like that happened, and said he'll look for the culprit immediately. Khalil knows that bald guy is still shocked because he came back alive, so the boy needs to keep investigating. Showing his bag of treasures, he said he found all of that inside the dungeon. Since he can't use them, it'd be better to hand them over to the mayor, Bakao. See, honestly, it's all just junk. But seeing all of it, the mayor got really excited, letting the boy take a piece of the books they keep in that city. Khalil thanked him for the offer, but said he's not interested in getting access to those magic books right now. The mayor realized that kid is still too naive to understand the world. It'd be better to bring him to his side than to get rid of someone with so much potential. He said he'd give him the coat used by high-level mages. This is a sign that Azor, the Magic Council, recognizes him. Khalil got a really useful gift, because the Magic Council's seal will make his travel between countries easier, even outside the Empire. Accepting the staff with a lot of gratitude, the ghost can't believe that Pig is a descendant of Celine. Even if she was self-centered, at least she was really beautiful. Looks like time messed up her family. Alan also said that man's magical power was mediocre, and now he understands why the boy didn't want to read those magic books, because the necessary information is already in his head. On top of that, the ghost noticed that Pig can't sense his presence. High-level mages in this era are terrible. Khalil said he should focus more on the present and stop thinking about the past. Outside, there were a bunch of people, and they stared at the boy really seriously. After going through that dungeon, Khalil can feel things differently, like he can see those men's attributes. Alan said everyone there is pathetic, and asked if the boy is a little more grateful to him now. Smiling, Khalil got via positive answer. Alan said he has a question to ask. He wants to know what happened to the boy's body. Khalil said he ate the flaming dragon's heart, leaving his ethereal friend shocked, because he doesn't know if he's talking about the same person. The red dragon, Rosaria. But our protagonist assured him it's true still. Alan can't understand it, because the boy wouldn't be able to defeat it. Khalil said that after the time of the elders, a great mage appeared, getting the nickname Dragon Hunter. Finally, knowing about this man's existence, Alan seemed impressed, and he wanted to know how he'd compare to him, but Khalil doesn't have that answer, because he's only seen his friend in spiritual form, and the ghost realized the boy was talking like he'd seen that mage, even though he's from another era. Khalil said he saw him for a brief moment while he fought the dragon, because he witnessed his final moments. Alan asked if he ate the heart that was left behind, because if he did, he's very lucky, because in a body with no magic, that could make him stronger than anyone. Khalil asked how the ghost knew about his constitution, and Alan said it's easy to tell. Show him right there how it happens. Putting some of his memories into the boy's head, Khalil started getting pulled to somewhere else. Alan hopes that with this, he'll be able to compare them in power. Little by little, the boy's eyes are closing. After that, he realized he was somewhere else. He was in the dragon's memories, he could tell, because it's not his first time doing something like this. He immediately started paying attention to what was happening. Several people came to talk to him. Those men belong to the Assembly of the Seven Elders. They all look very young, around 20 years old, so this memory must be really old. Even Alan is young in this event. The long-haired man said he'd only speak one more time, because the assembly has already come to a decision. Alan said they don't know what this decision really means, but the man said Alan can't keep looking after Spring's vision, because that's out of their reach, even if they depend on that man's visionary magic. After hearing something that made no sense, Alan can't understand why I keep asking for his help, saying the long-haired guy went crazy from staying in the library for so long. The long-haired guy's name is Gustav, and he knows humans learned magic through dragons, but he doesn't want to hand the Grey Dean over to them. But Alan said this place is also really important to humanity, And actually, the dragons only borrowed it and need to give it back. Gustav said he's wrong, and that they're the ones responsible for the changes the dragons couldn't make. What people want isn't the Grey Dean, but the thing that's sleeping inside it. That revelation left our protagonist shocked. Now he's sure the sword wasn't the only treasure in that place, and it's something even the dragons want. Gustav said he'd only speak one more time, because this is the final decision, and his men showed hostility toward Alan, because if he doesn't agree with this decision, he'll be forced to accept it. But the dragon didn't like being pressured like that. Getting completely furious with Gustav, he got ready to attack him. The long-haired guy told his men to protect themselves, but the dragon's attacks were closing in fiercely, believing those people wouldn't be able to dodge it. The bald guy in the group was the first to go down, because he got hit right in the middle of his bald spot. His lifeless body stained the floor of that place. Khalil knows that magic is second class, but it came out like lightning, and its casting speed is impossible. Alan's opponents now are the 7 great elders of the assembly, and they weren't able to react to that attack speed. Even if it looks like Asir, they're on a totally different level. Right after that, Alan made a small gesture with his fingers, and that was enough to produce more attacks, forcing the mages to protect themselves with a barrier, which was completely obliterated by the dragon. Gustav is getting more and more worried about what's happening. Because his companions are being defeated quickly, Khalil realized that Dragon is just incredible. He doesn't need to hold a sword, because his magic is completely off the charts, using different attributes because of his draconic nature, and by sharing that memory, he could only watch the magic happening. Khalil realized that was Alan's intention in sharing those memories. Asir put a lot of power into low-class spells, while Alan went even further, because he could mix 2 attributes. That Yun, G-Man was definitely the most powerful mage in history, and even so, he ended up imprisoned in the Grey Dean. A sign that there's someone stronger than him. When the memories ended, the boy returned to his body, recognizing how incredible his ghost buddy was. But Alan is deeply unsettled about that boy, because he found out he time-traveled, and on top of that, managed to do something completely unimaginable. Khalil asked if the dragon really snooped through his memories during that technique, and Alan said that term is way too offensive. They shared a bit of the past, so it's fine. Since he was in his spiritual form, he wasn't able to see everything, he only saw a few flashes, and now he knows what the boy's plan is. He wants to meet the Platinum Dragon and show him his memories to confirm he went back in time, but he wants to know if the boy really trusts that dragon, and if he never suspected him. Khalil said all of that is absurd, and Alan told him he was being totally sincere, asking the boy if he really considers that dragon his friend, revealing that he'll change his mind when he finds out the reason he was locked in that place. Because the boy saw the way he fought, even though they were called the Assembly of the 7 Elders, not all of them were mages. The other 6 were way below his level. They couldn't do anything, but they managed to escape that place, leaving him completely imprisoned. Because that day, someone entered the Grey Dean, and that person was the Platinum Dragon, also the one responsible for imprisoning him. Mog is a man our protagonist is trusting blindly. Khalil already suspected that only a dragon could imprison another dragon like that. And if it really was his friend, things get more and more complicated. Since he'd gotten pretty worked up, Khalil was trying to calm down now, believing he's being tested by Alan. Because he can't show that spirit that he was shaken, he told his ghost buddy that the Platinum Dragon must have had his reasons, reminding him that the Elders' Assembly wasn't responsible for the continent's prosperity. Alan confirms they didn't care about human lives, teaching them magic was just a hobby. But that wasn't what he had asked. He wanted to know if the boy really never doubted that dragon. Khalil said he never had a reason to. But Alan doesn't believe those words, and the boy asked not to be provoked. Alan assured him the Platinum Dragon lied to him. Proof of that is that Mog claimed the Freezing Claw Sword was the only thing that was in that place. With a snap of his fingers, the dragon was going to show other things. In that chest is what Mog took in his past life. Alan is sure of it. But now, Khalil will be the one to own that object. Since he's being pushed to distrust his friend, Khalil said someone else could have taken the treasure. But the ghost assured him that's completely impossible, because nobody managed to master dragon magic. The elders of the assembly learned from them. Thanks to that, they could use a small bit of the dragon's power, because all the magic they created used draconic magic as it lacked its foundation. And people who use normal techniques aren't able to learn what dragons know. And Alan asked the boy to use the ear splitter for something. The dragons wouldn't allow just anyone to take the treasures from that place. You need dragon magic to break the seal. Only a dragon could do that. Mog, the Platinum Dragon, hid the greatest treasure in that place from our protagonist. The boy is getting more and more curious about what's inside this box. Alan realized that after saying all that, the boy is more likely to make a contract with him. Since he has a dragon heart, he should be able to break the seal, but he needs to learn the necessary technique. Khalil asked if he's proposing a trade again, and the ghost reminded him he's wanted that from the start. Alan knows he wants to change the future, and he can improve the boy's chances of pulling something like that off, because they want the same thing, to meet Mog. Alan wants to get out of that prison, that's why he can't trick the boy, and he offered to hand over the seal formula to him. Khalil didn't expect to make a contract with a mage from another era. The ghost reminded him, the boy has nothing to lose, guaranteeing that the knowledge he has is something no mage has ever reached, and he can share it all with him. Khalil realized that now he could rival even the dragons, but it's still a risky bet. If he makes a mistake, he could be possessed by that spirit. Since he consumed a dragon's heart, his body isn't just human, and Alan's soul could be destroyed if he tried to take control of his body. Thinking about the risks, Khalil realized the ghost really wants to get out of this prison. He confessed it's the only chance in 1,000 years, and he's desperate. Even so, he stayed honest, suggesting that Khalil could take advantage of this opportunity because he would help the boy become the king of the entire continent. Khalil finally decided to agree to this proposal. Then the two of them shook hands, sealing the contract. Now that they're together, the boy can learn things that were beyond his understanding, and that happens because Alan shared his wisdom with him. Making it clear the boy's magic is still limited, Khalil asked how to fix this problem. But it's the first time he's seen a body like Khalil's, nobody with my dragon heart in the past, and his body could explode. Khalil realized he had no choice but to find a dragon in his life. Maybe Mog has more answers, but it'll be hard to find him, because entering a dragon's hideout is dangerous, and Khalil wouldn't be able to right now. Knowing the platinum dragon is still sleeping, Khalil has time to plan and needs to get stronger. Alan said that if the boy gets stronger, he can also regain his original strength through the contract, and he could teach him to use the freezing sword, because it's way more useful for Khalil than his magic techniques. The boy realized Alan's words make a lot of sense. Even so, he believes he already knows how to use a sword, and Alan asked if he means that weak woman from his past. If he means her, he'd better forget it, because all she is swing the sword from side to side, and since the talented boy knows exactly what he means, the woman didn't know how to use the freezing sword. They're talking about Miliana, leader of the Southern Cavalry and the only human who had dragon magic. Khalil said she wasn't bad, but Alan made it clear she had the strongest weapon and still couldn't beat a manaless barbarian. If it were him, Alan would have made an army of dragons. Khalil said putting dragon blood into a living person is forbidden in the Empire, so his ghost friend reminded him the world is ending, so the Empire doesn't really matter. But the boy made it clear he wouldn't use people as sacrifices, even if it was the only solution. Alan respected his stance, but if one day he needed to, he just had to ask. Just because he fought with a sword in that tower hell doesn't mean he understands everything about those weapons. Khalil asked if he was criticizing his technique, and the ghost made it clear he did all of that without magic. Using that energy is something he still doesn't know how to do. Interested? Khalil asked when they start learning, which made the dragon smile. Because their training had already started, Khalil was taken somewhere else. Alan said it's a training field. An imaginary space created through magic. 1 month in there equals 1 day in real life. The Platinum Dragon knows this place too. Khalil knows Mog was able to defeat the ghost comrade, and Alan reminded him that soon the boy will need to face him too. The technique they're going to learn now isn't that simple. Because there's a limit to how much magic a swordsman can use. And despite physical limits, there's no limit to magic itself. Khalil didn't like being described like that. Alan admits his perspective comes from being a mage, and he didn't want to focus on the argument about which of the two could be stronger, a mage or a swordsman, because one day he learned something from a wise person, and Khalil noticed there were several slashes in that place. Alan warned that there's a peculiar difference between a swordsman's fencing and a mage's fencing, and Khalil will become someone who can't be measured by conventional standards, because he won't just be a sword master, since he's the only one who can use skills from both classes, a place no one has reached. Becoming the first and true Grand Master, Alan created several enemies made of energy, their memories left in that place, showing him what Kalnir, the creator of demonic fencing, invented, was also a bearer of the freezing sword. Khalil watched that very closely. Using magic is really useful, but it protects exposed areas. That technique wasn't focused on the mana sword. Its goal was for the fencing technique itself, something completely different from the technique he's been using up to now, so he kept getting more and more impressed. Kalnir took 150 years to perfect his technique, and the boy isn't going to learn all of that quickly, but he's willing to prove otherwise, trying to replicate the moves he had seen. Using the sword he carries now, Khalil got really excited about the ray. Salt, and asked the ghost comrade if there was a name for that. Knowing it's the colorless sword, Khalil wanted to know if that's all there is to see, leaving his ghost friend impressed. Ready to go back outside, he told the ghost he could find more interesting people. Khalil believes there's a misunderstanding between them, so he's going to be clear. True fencing has only 7 forms. After spending some time in that place, Khalil returned to his quarters, being greeted by the mercenary. Alan wants to know if he was talking about this boy, and Khalil said it's him. The dragon realized his body has potential, Learning magic with that constitution would be really easy, and he asked Khalil to hold the boy's hand. Our protagonist did as ordered, leaving the mercenary surprised. Alan was analyzing his body in detail, saying he has the potential to become a great mage. Since Alan will be his teacher, there's nothing to worry about. But the ghost didn't really agree with that idea, even though he admits it would be great to have a talented student, and Khalil said they'll need him to find Mog's hideout. Our protagonist praised the mercenary's progress, who's already in the 3rd class. Right after that, he asked if Alan wouldn't like teaching that boy. He also said they'd be leaving that city soon, and there would be time for the lessons to happen. The ghost agreed on one condition. He wanted to stop halfway along the Blue Road, acknowledging it might have another name now. It's the Pebble Abyss. He knows the boy doesn't want to go here, because that's where the Pharrell Tower is. It's been a long time since the last time the boy heard that name, and he can't forget what happened that day, when he invited Oliverne to stop living. Alan knows this brings uncomfortable memories, and he doesn't want to go there just to torment the kid. Khalil, even though he hasn't known him for that long, knows the ghost has a reason for this. The problem is that the place is protected by several tribes that are powerful. Alan is impressed, because the tribes in that place still believe in ancient legends, so they're called barbarians. Khalil said he's living in someone's body right now, and he doesn't care whether the legend is true or not, but the tribes believe only one person can climb that mountain and will be able to rule them. Alan said he can help him with that goal, because there's something hidden in that place. The secret to strengthening the kid's magic? Khalil asked if the buddy ghost was serious, and he guaranteed it's true, since he has hundreds of years of research, and asked if he remembers about the distilled water. Khalil couldn't forget that, because they destroyed an extremely valuable item. Alan said that with his knowledge, it wasn't a waste, and they're going to the Abyss Boulder to get more of that water. He believes weapons made with that material can be very effective against the monsters. The dragons taught humanity how to use magic, leaving the creatures to protect the spring vision. Alan was one of those responsible. After staying there for so many years, he ended up learning something. There was a connection between dragon magic and spirit stones. The dragons belong to the spirit world, and the spring vision strengthens their magic. Khalil understood he could stabilize his magic in a place like that. This is the chance of a lifetime. Alan guaranteed that with this opportunity, they can solve 2 problems at once, stressing that making a contract with him is very advantageous. Our protagonist agrees with that, and they're getting along really well now. However, the kid wants to know how the buddy ghost will benefit from this. Alan can't hide anything from him, and he's fooled by the kid's youthful appearance. Khalil guaranteed that if he was doing something shady, he'd regret it, but he guaranteed he wouldn't do anything, reminding him that he talked to him about a group called Blade. They created 5 weapons in the spring vision, among them the freezing sword, which can be strengthened in that place with spirit stones. The kid asked if the ghost could materialize through the sword, and that's exactly what he wants, but he needs the kid's magic. Khalil admits that this is a very interesting plan. Alan realized he must have thought of something just by looking at his expression. Caution will be necessary. Now that they're going to that place, there must be other people looking for the weapons that were lost to time. Other souls besides the one that follows our kid. Now that he understood Khalil's plans, the ghost got scared, because he must be planning to face a very powerful Lich, Zarkahochi. Not even the 7 elders managed to do that in his time, because he lives in cursed lands. Khalil guaranteed he doesn't want to do that now, but he has no time to waste, and needs to keep training. The dragon had never seen anyone as determined as the kid. It's like he wants to fight all the time, and he was going to create a training dimension for him. Khalil asked for it to be very powerful, because he's eager to get strong. Meanwhile, Aiden keeps waiting, and he's wondering how long the kid will stay sitting like that. The magical energy is so strong inside the room that he can't touch the doorknob. While he was thinking about that, someone called him, startling the guy. The man named Thompson left an item for him. Aiden is more and more scared of the kid's growth. It's like he's a different person. Alan said that one day had passed, and the kid might be pushing himself too hard, but he's not worried about it thanks to time manipulation. Even so, the ghost said they don't need to rush, because it'll take time until the kid masters that sword technique. Khalil, after practicing a bit, realized it's harder than he imagined. His current body is limited. Alan, after hearing that, was very surprised. Because the kid had learned 7 forms of the colorless sword, besides having found ways to improve it, he figures Kalnair really liked showing off. His technique is very flashy. There's a lot of unnecessary stuff. Even so, it's still incredible. Khalil managed to learn a lot, but he prefers using his own skills. Alan understands the kid better now. Because he spent countless years in hell with only a sword. There was only one last thing for Khalil to do in that place, and he decided to go to the Bald Guys Guild. Who was already eagerly waiting for the kid, Khalil told him that he had received a task. The bald guy said he needs to be careful with this kind of request, since it involves someone really important. Khalil says the stolen books are being gathered by a cult. Pretty suspicious. The bald guy said he didn't understand that claim, but our boy already knows he's involved in illegal activities. And now he's gotten proof of all those deals, which tie him to the Principality of Lurine. Feeling accused, the bald guy ordered his subordinate to take the kid out, but the poor extra got turned into a block of ice, leaving the bald guy completely stunned, because the very next moment, Khalil destroyed what was left of that man. Trying to threaten him, the bald guy said the kid signed a slavery contract, and our protagonist reminded him he'd only follow orders as long as the Ulka's Guild existed. Trying to use his authority, Bargo said only he can hand out missions, and the kid reminded him there's someone else who can do that. The vice leader, the drunk Thompson. Now the kid wants to know everything the bald guy knows about the wooden cloud, and if he values his life, he should start talking. Khalil promised he'll do everything he can to get all the information he has. The next day, Thompson got promoted to leader. Because the old leader, Bargo, mysteriously disappeared, Thompson said if Callie, L were the leader, it'd be easier to avoid problems with the slavery contract. But he doesn't want to get involved with that place, and he'd rather have someone trustworthy in charge. Thompson gets so emotional he doesn't even know how to repay all the gratitude he's feeling. Alan said the contract doesn't have any effect anymore, and that the kid is way too happy helping that man. Khalil made it clear he needs trustworthy people, and they don't know what's going to happen when the war comes. The mercenary said they're already ready to hit the road. He told Thompson to talk to the chiefs of Tator if he has problems. Just say he knows Khalil. And he said he'd do as ordered, letting our boy continue his journey. Time flew by in that place. They stayed in that city for almost 6 months. Khalil asked what Aiden thinks about everything he's done so far, and being honest in his answer, he said he's very surprised. Getting a contract with the most famous mercenary group is impressive, but he also won that magic competition, and on top of that, he took down the Grey Dean completely on his own. All of those are impressive achievements. Khalil asked if that man has changed his mind about him yet, and our protagonist hopes he keeps being his supporter because he has future plans for him. To build a strong nation, he needs money, land, and a powerful army. Khalil is impressed that Aiden knows that too. Since he knows the continent's geography well, he must also know what his next destination is. Aiden realized he's a fool, and that kid's ambitions are even bigger than he thought. Tator is his wealth. The mercenaries will be his army. All he needs now is land to build on. And in that direction, there's only one place nobody's interested in, but there's a reason that land is abandoned. Going there is completely insane, but if it's that kid, Aiden believes maybe there's hope. Dushala got news from Kadihum, samples of the ores from that land, and everything is happening just like the master said. The man who hates his own arteries is impressed too, because there's a huge variety of minerals. They could end up richer than the Empire, and the woman said it's still too early to celebrate. Suan is also bringing news from the port. The repairs are finished. The immigrants coming from the north have already been settled. The woman noticed his reputation spread fast across the continent. Kama isn't liking that, because Suan's influence is growing a lot. He's a chief, just like the other two, but he feels like his space is shrinking. When the woman called him by name, he shrank back like a puppy. She had something she wanted him to do, and with that, he could earn the master's approval. Curious, he decided to check what he was supposed to do. The woman said he'd get his revenge. Because he used to be a noble in the Principality of Lurine, Kama was surprised by that, denying it. This letter came from Baron Beryl, and to be more precise, it lines up with the master's plan. The Principality is making weapons to go to war against the Empire, and he needs to confirm that information. Looks lick. The master already knows Kama's past. The bald guy doesn't like being used as a pawn on a chessboard. Dushala started asking how many barbarians live in the southern lands. The bald guy said tens of thousands, and he was soon shocked by what she was suggesting. Looks like the master is going to conquer the south. On the plains, the leader of that tribe is waiting. The guy who really likes smoking a lot. And apparently he smokes something different, because with every puff, a big smile shows up. This is the chief of the flying tribe, Swan Mukari. Aiden noticed he has an impressive presence, just like you'd expect from a real chief. Looking at those foreigners' clothes, he figured they were coming from the Empire, but our protagonist said that's not quite it. Actually, they're coming from the free city of Tatur. Swan said if they were from the Empire, they'd be headless by now, and asked what they wanted. The boy said he has a deal to make. That immediately made the chief grin like crazy, because there's an unwritten rule that the North doesn't interfere in the South. Khalil said that only exists because the North isn't interested in those lands the Empire can invade whenever it wants. And the chief definitely knows that, because the massacre happens in the lands to the north. When Olivern took the throne, he tried to conquer those lands, but ended up failing, because the tribes of the South united. Swan said the Free City is no different from the Empire, because he heard they're violent too, but the boy confirmed that had changed. Now that he controls everything, immigrants and slaves can live in freedom. The chief stays resistant. Khalil told him the tribes of the South can be accepted too. A warrior who was there said that's absurd, but the chief told him to calm down. Khalil knows that Warrior is the leader's son, and he's someone very skilled. The chief asked what the proposal was, and if he wants to influence them, he must have something to offer. Since they have a trade relationship, the Empire couldn't dominate the Free City, so the chief thought an alliance was being suggested, and the boy said he'll help him take over the 5 great clans of that region. As payment, he wants a free route to the Abyss Boulder. Our protagonist needs that so he can get ready. But hearing that proposal, the chief laughed again, thinking the boy is crazy, and his soldiers aimed arrows at them. Aiden got really worried, because now he won't be able to run, and he realized his body wouldn't move. The mercenary realized he was completely paralyzed too, until ice started forming in that place. All of that was being caused by our protagonist, who showed the chief he could defeat him if he wanted to, like this, saying that if he wants to be the chief of that whole plane, he should act with honor. He didn't like being the victim of that cheap trap. Khalil already knew the smoke from that pipe causes paralysis, but he wouldn't be affected by something like that, ordering the antidote to be given to his men, unless the chief wants to end up one head shorter. Outside, Aiden asked if the boy is completely crazy. Those tribes have been at war for decades, and there's a delicate balance because of it. Khalil knows they can't settle things, but none of those tribes has tried anything reckless. The mercenary knows why that happens. There are a lot of monsters in that region, and that stops the war from progressing. But hunting monsters provides raw materials, which they trade with other nations. Aiden is impressed. The boy knows so much about it, and he said he's been to the lands of the south once before. Khalil said this situation favors taking over that region. Even so, Aiden said those tribes must have more than 2,000 warriors. That's when the young man revealed his plan. He doesn't want to fight those people. They're going straight to a dungeon. The monsters in a dungeon come from another dimension. Very similar to the environment of the tower he cleared, the Oracle's arrival made everything much worse. Mikhail asked about the boulder and if it's related to the 2-headed eagle. Our protagonist said yes, and that it's the second most dangerous dungeon on the plane. They need to defeat that monster. After that, it'll be much easier to convince the tribes. Aiden realized the idea is brilliant, but really risky. They're going deeper and deeper into that cave. Breathing inside it is really hard, but dungeons tend to be complicated. Alan said he doesn't feel dark power in that place, which is unusual. That's an energy opposite to holy power. Even so, they should be cautious in that region. The mercenary noticed there are gemstones inside that place. Khalil said they're triple quartz, and only dwarves and gnomes know how to use that. During the war with the Oracle, some monsters could only be hurt with that stuff. That's when Khalil realized something was happening, telling his men to hide behind him. A very threatening sound was coming from inside the cave, and it was coming from a huge, dangerous creature. Khalil had never seen anything that threatening in his entire life, not even in the tower. Alan said that creature comes from the demon's dimension, and the name of that monstrosity is Ogma.
So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.